Welcome, everybody, to the June 17th regular City Council meeting. If you haven't grabbed an agenda, I highly recommend doing that. It's a 6-page agenda, and I don't plan on reading every single item completely out. So if you haven't grabbed an agenda, please do so. Oh. Share with your neighbor. We're all friends here. It's also available online if you can pull it up on your phone. All right. Item A. Quorum is present. Madam Secretary, quorum present?
Yes.
All right, next we're going to move into Prayer and Pledge by Bobby Warren, Council Member Place 3.
Dear Lord, as we gather tonight as a community and as a council, please watch over this entire community, watch over this city. In particular, please keep our police, fire, and all first responders safe. Tonight, as we deliberate the issues that affect this community, please give our council members and our staff the wisdom to identify issues and to deal with them in a way that benefits the community and is consistent with your will. Lord, please look over our military and ensure that they remain safe. For those who may perish in service of this country, please look over their families, and we pray for the repose of the souls of those lost in service to this country. And finally, Lord, let us all continue to have a spirit of charity in our hearts as we deliberate the issues in our community tonight. Ensure that all of our neighbors return safely to their families. And we ask that in all things that we keep you first and foremost in our mind. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Bobby. Okay, we have a couple of presentations. Okay, so a couple weekends ago, I was just browsing Facebook and I noticed a public service that was done in our city, and I wanted to recognize it. A couple of young people, handful of young people, who took time out of their schedules to make our community better, and I just wanted to recognize them. I'm going to try to maybe do this once a quarter, just like the mayor's Junior Service Award. I really want to recognize the young people in the community who give up their time to make this place better. So I wanted to recognize, let's see, I see them here. We have Jacob Schubring, come on up, and Luke Schubring. Stand right here, guys. And Proud Mom. So these young guys, along with their friends, the Tuggles, we have also had Grayson and Amelia Tuggle. They took time out of their day to get in some kayaks, walk them down to the bayou, go down the bayou and pick up trash. And I had And so I wanted to show a few pictures of their endeavor. So this is them getting the kayaks. Oop, hang on. There we go. So this is them getting their kayaks ready for service. This is them marching down the street. And here they are picking up some trash all along our beautiful bayou there. And there's their haul. Wow. So, thank you very much. Jacob. Thank you very much, sir. All right. Thank you very much. And the employee of the month couldn't make it, so we're going to skip over that one for this time being. Move on to item D. Conduct a joint public hearing. Item D1, conduct a joint public hearing with the Planning and Zoning Commission. Madam Secretary, P&Z Chairman and Vice Chairman and quorum of P&Z are present.
Yes.
Okay, I now call to order this joint public hearing with the Planning and Zoning Commission at, that's wrong, 7:06 p.m. Everyone desiring to speak should complete a public hearing comment card and present the card to the city secretary. Each speaker will be given 5 minutes to present information concerning the proposals listed in the agenda item. Is there anybody desiring to speak?
No, but for the record, can we read the items that, for the joint public hearing? We don't need to say what items we're discussing for the joint public hearing?
The public hearing can just be identified by general topics of the zoning, the agenda item, that's all that's required.
I'll read it. Concerning the proposals to amend Chapter 14 Building and Development, Article 4 zoning districts. Anybody desiring to speak on this topic? There being no one desiring to speak, I now close this joint public hearing on proposals to amend Chapter 14 Building and Development, Article 4 zoning districts. And I close it at 7:08 p.m. Are you sure you want to talk about this public hearing? Okay, come speak.
I had written a list of comments, but they had 2 or 3 that were related, may have been related to the zoning, and I didn't think about separating them out. So how should I handle that, if that's true?
Make a separate comment. That's fine.
Mayor, let's reopen the public hearing
Okay.
at,
I now call to order this joint public hearing of the Planning and Zoning Commission at 7:09 p.m. Everyone desiring to speak should complete a public comment card and present the comment card to the secretary. I have Cheryl Desforges.
Yeah, so Cheryl DeForge, 16309 Lakeview Drive, just a few houses up that way, up the street on Lakeview. And I'm one of the people, the lucky people that got the letter, because I'm within the 200-foot radius of destroying this and redoing this area as residential. Huh? Oh, you're not going to tear this building down? Well, why are you, that was my point, is why are you rezoning this whole area as residential? We have a fire station and a police station that are relatively new. I've lived here 44 years almost, and you know, I voted for those fire stations and police stations to be built. They're fairly new structures. And at the same time that was voted, there was a vote for a new city hall, and that was declined by the citizens at that point of time. And so it distresses me that now you want to rezone this entire area residential, and I think you have some explaining to do. You know, it's not clear to me why the city council wants to do this.
Because Texas Department of Transportation has advised us that in order to extend a sound wall, they will not extend a sound wall between business districts, but they will in a residential area. And so it doesn't affect anything except for the fact that we will get a sound wall go a little further down, which benefits you and a lot of other people around here.
And so who's paying for the sound wall?
Texas Department of Transportation.
Well, that would be interesting. You ought to post the letter to that effect on the website.
The memorandum of understanding was in the packet.
I don't recall seeing it. It was a pretty long packet, so sorry about that. So, okay, thank you.
Merilee Beasley.
Hi, I'm Merilee Beasley, and I live at 14910 Lakeview Drive. I've lived here for 38 years, and frankly, I see a lot of troubling activities on the part of the city council. My understanding about the Planning and Zoning Commission recommending, my understanding was, and I may be wrong, is that you wanted to rezone it residential, which to me meant that you wanted, because you have, without permission from the citizens, you have decided with Collaborate Developers that you're going to build a $8 million city hall building, is what I understand, on the other side of the Highway 290. And I understand that you're talking about moving the fire department. No? Okay, well, okay, so actually, I wasn't clear on that. Now, you can't comment back to me, so all I can do is tell you what I understood, because
We can say statements of fact, and the fact is the fire department and police department are not
Well,
moving.
I'm relieved to hear that, because my understanding was that you were going to rezone this area as residential, and I know that this is a prime piece of property, because as I had heard at another city council meeting, that most everything's been built out, so I also believe that it would be advantageous for planning and zoning to have some more area to build residences inside Jersey Village. And I also know from reading some things that there's been a lot of comments from a former mayor about how horrible this building is, and there's black mold and all those kinds of things. And frankly, as a nurse, I'd like to see those reports, and I'd like to see who did the mold studies and be sure that we have dangerous black mold, as was suggested in more than one, I believe in more than one mayor's letter. Now, my own opinion is this. I am from a time when you take care of what you need first, you take care of what you want after the needs are met. And lately, it seems to me like I see needs ignored, and what you want is what you guys ask for. So I personally like the idea that this building is paid for, and I don't think it would take a whole lot of money to fix this building up, make sure all the mold is gone, repair and, replace the carpet, whatever needs to be done, because frankly, I'm a little concerned about how high the property taxes are and how high the homestead exemption is, because some people I know have been doing some digging and looking at some of the numbers, and this community has had, as I believe I heard somebody, a former council member, say at a previous meeting, that the council was very forward-thinking, and I guess that's how they got that almost $18 million set aside, because they were forward-thinking, and I'm not sure I see it that way. The way I see it is, basically, you took the excess and kept it, I don't know where, but my understanding is a city's supposed to keep in reserve about 1.5 million, not almost 18 million. Now, it's possible, I'm not clear on all of that. I'm just a little bit concerned. In fact, I'm very concerned, if you get my message. I don't understand what's going on here. I think that some people are doing some things that aren't quite right, and have been apparently for decades. Thank you.
Merilee, did you miss there's been a lot of discussion on this topic, and the sole reason for this zoning change is so that this minor change, TxDOT, will extend the sound wall.
And it's only about the sound wall.
This is solely about the sound wall.
City Hall to the other side of Highway 290.
No, because zoning only affects what you can build in that area. It has nothing to do with what is already there.
Well, I'm relieved to hear that because
Okay,
none of
thank
us
you.
got a chance to vote on moving
Is there anybody else desiring to speak about this public hearing?
Hall up
Ma'am,
to 290.
your time is done. Thank you. Anybody else desiring to speak? Mark, hang on. She raised her hand. Can you state your name?
Yes, my name is Sharon Lindo. I live on Congo, and I've also been here about 43 years. I just heard this about the sound wall. Now, does that mean if this area right here is going to be residential, does that mean where the church is, the Baptist church, has to be residential for the wall to be extended to? Is the extension going to stop right here at Jersey Drive? Because there are businesses all along this freeway, up past Jones Road. Does that mean that the sound wall is not going to go that far? It's not? It's going to stop at Jersey Drive?
Yes.
So that means all the people that live on this inner side of the church, the Baptist church over here, they're not going to have a sound wall up there. Wow. Is TxDOT still going to coat our road to make it quiet like it is on the other side where Beltway 8 is?
We're getting off topic here. Is there anything else you have to say about the zoning change?
No, just want to know if TxDOT is going to extend that wall any further. So y'all are saying it's
The
going
memorandum of
quick.
understanding that's in the packet explains where it's going to go.
Well, I've never seen it written. I'm sorry.
It's going to go,
Can anybody just state, you said it's going to end at Jersey Drive, the sound wall?
Correct, but keep in mind, we have to keep the meeting germane to the zoning change, even though that has to do with TxDOT. Any other changes, such as any sort of surfaces that may reduce noise, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about
Okay,
today.
but I had mentioned the Baptist church, so those homes on the other side of the Baptist church, they're not going to be protected by a sound wall. It's just going to be the church. That's it.
And keep in mind, that's not our rule, it's TxDOT's rule.
No, I just wanted to know if that's what we're saying right here. That's why we have to be residential, so that the wall will go to Jersey Drive. Is that right?
Austin, go ahead.
Am I confused?
Mayor, if I might, so the MOU within the packet tonight, which is agenda item H8, is to provide for a sound wall from south of Lakeview Drive to Senate Avenue. We are still working with TxDOT to see if we can get that extended here. Right now, it's not looking completely favorable, but we're still working our best, and I hope we might be able to engage our state representative to help us with that. But that is where we are at this process right now, from this point right out here in the municipal parking lot up to Senate Drive.
And see,
along the
that's not
backside
all of Jersey
Seattle.
Village. Jersey Village is from the Beltway to Jones Road.
And Mr. Mayor, if I might add one more thing, we are more than happy to work with our state representative to try and make that happen, who is sitting right over here. And if we want to do that, if the council would like to direct us to go ahead and have those conversations, we're more than happy to do so.
I think as another comment, sound walls are typically only effective for a certain distance. So typically they place them, through my experience and the presentations with TxDOT, is that they will place those sound walls near residential, adjacent to residential, because that's where they're most effective. The further you get away from the sound wall, the less effective, if at all, sound walls are. So they'll do a cost-benefit analysis, and if it makes sense, they will typically install those walls. But after about 150 feet, if I recall, could be totally wrong, they become pretty ineffective.
Really?
And that's not me, that's TxDOT.
Huh. Very interesting, because I see that sound wall down 290
You see
past
them
us.
adjacent to residentials.
Okay, well, we're still residential here. I mean, a block and a half, 2 blocks is not very far off.
Well, I suggest you contact TxDOT or the state
Okay.
rep, maybe they can help
All
you.
right, okay.
We, as a city, cannot.
Okay, well, I'll be looking for that. Thank you.
Mark, come on up. Keep in mind, this is the public hearing for zoning change.
I understand. Okay, anyway, my name's Mark Malloy, 7803 Hamilton Circle, past city council member for the city of Jersey Village, Texas. Citizens' comments for the zoning meeting, 06/17/2019. Please make my verbal comments and documents given to the city secretary a permanent record of the meeting. So the issue that I want to talk about is the zoning, and they're basically considering rezoning of the city municipal facilities that the city, basically they're going to rezone it from zoning district G, second business district, to zoning district A, single family dwelling district. I talked to the city building official this afternoon about the rezoning, and I asked him why the city is considering rezoning the property. He told me it was to enable the area to meet the new to be enacted buffering ordinance to cause the placement of, from what I understand from our conversation, an 8-foot wall between the residential properties and the commercial retail properties. This would be required on new development and or renovations to existing commercial and retail facilities. So is this buffering requirement going to be paid for by the commercial property owners? And the noise abatement wall that is going to be built by TxDOT, the Texas Department of Transportation, for the residential homes on the south side of Seattle Street starting west of Senate are going to be 14 to 16 feet high. I'm asking the city government to require the walls to be built on this new zoning buffering ordinance to a minimum of 12 feet high. And the reason I'm asking that is because I do not believe the 8-foot wall height will be effective in providing the residential property owners the adequate noise abatement needed or desired. And so anyway, like I'm saying, and from what you guys are saying, is that you're changing this zoning to maybe somehow allow a wall to be built to buffer from, say, Joe Myers in the future. Okay, well, the other thing is when I talked to, the building official earlier, he's basically saying what Austin said was that the city is not going to get that noise wall. It's going to terminate at the homes over here to the east of the municipal facility, and that maybe from what he's saying now, you might possibly get it extended to Jersey if you change this zoning to make it residential. So I don't know. I mean, maybe it will work. I don't know if it's a possibility that you'll get it. I've looked at other areas of the city, like say other areas of the Houston area, and when they did the expansion along I-10, looking at the noise walls that were built there, there was no walls built between a commercial building shielding another commercial area. So, maybe if you change this zoning, maybe it will work. I don't have any idea. But anyway, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Is there anyone else desiring to speak on the zoning change? All right, there being no one else desiring to speak, I now close this joint public hearing on the proposals to amend Chapter 14 Building Development, Article 4 at 7:24 p.m.
Mayor, would you like to dismiss the Planning and Zoning Commission to retire?
Yeah, you guys are dismissed to discuss. Thank you. All right. Move on to item E, citizen comments. Citizens who have signed a card and wish to speak to City Council will be heard at this time in compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act unless the subject matter of the comment is on the agenda. The city staff and city council members are prevented from discussing the subject and may only respond with statements of factual information or existing policy. Citizens are limited to 5 minutes for their comments to the city council. John Rosenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Congratulations on your election. And Mr. Wasson, congratulations to you too. And thank you all, members of the Jersey Village City Council, for allowing me to speak here today. If you don't mind, I'm going to turn around and address your city. My name is John Rosenthal, and I'm the Texas State Representative for House District 135. And that includes Jersey Village, Copperfield, some of Cypress, all the way down into a little bit of Katy. So I just wanted to come and say hello and show my face. It's my intention to be accessible and approachable. It's my job to listen to your concerns and carry them to Austin. And so if I'm going to do that, that means I have to be available to you. So I have a district office. Actually, I want to point out my district director. April, can you stand up? This is April Henshaw. She's the district director, works in our office. So we will keep it staffed and available to you. I personally will be available by appointment, so you guys can book time. I'm happy to meet with you, talk to you about your concerns. I hope you can appreciate that there are going to be a lot of people who want to have those conversations, and so we'll try to keep them compartmentalized if possible. This legislative session, I think, was very productive. We did a lot in this legislature, and I'm happy to talk about those things. I could, go all night, and I've got like 4 minutes, but the big deals were the school finance reform, which included money for property tax relief, which I hope the city of Jersey Village is going to be happy about. There is also a property tax reform, which I'm kind of lukewarm on. It's very technical and wonky, but I think the ins and outs of it are not as positive as some are saying. And then the school, the public safety, the school safety bills, I think were very good, and particularly a monstrous Harvey relief package that includes planning for disaster mitigation, disaster recovery is very positive. So with that, I'll just say thank you again. My name is John Rosenthal. The office is at 9601 Jones Road. That's in the Cy-Fair Federal Credit Union. Thank you guys for letting me talk. I really appreciate the time.
Thank you, John. Patty Melanson.
Hello, my name is Patty Melanson, and I live right there on Rio Grande, right by the church. And I don't know the avenue to go about this, so forgive me. It's my first time speaking, but I love riding our bikes in the neighborhood, and it gets a little dicey down there, Village Drive, because you've got sidewalk on one side of the street, but kids really can't ride on the sidewalk because, it's a short sidewalk, so the cars will block it. So my suggestion would be to make it a little bit safer so the kids could go to the dollar store, they could go to Chick-fil-A and stay within the Jersey Village, is maybe to somehow either craft a bike lane or a way for them to ride on a sidewalk on the opposite side of the street, because it's really kind of a safety issue as well, because cars, it's very busy, it's a busy intersection, and when they go off the sidewalk, they go into traffic. So that's just what concern that I had, and I didn't know the right way to do it, so here I am. So
You did it the right way, because the
Okay.
city manager's sitting right there writing that down, so good job.
Okay. All right, well, that's all I have, thank you.
Thank you, and I'm sorry for butchering your name. Frank Marr?
Frank Marr, live on St. Helier. I've been hearing a discussion about the sound wall. I'm 3 houses off Rio Grande. When we first started construction on the freeway, and it's probably 6, 7, or 8 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, the city of Jersey Village hired a company to come out and take some readings on the noise levels from the freeway. We are addressing a problem here right at City Hall. Like one lady said, I haven't heard anything on the Baptist church going that way. The sound has increased since the freeway has been widened because it brought the roads closer to Rio Grande. So I was wondering if we still have that test and records and all that, that when is it going to be time to retest it to see actually what the sound levels have done now that the freeway's finished? Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Susan Edwards.
Good evening. I'm Susan Edwards. I live at 16001 Jersey Drive, right there at Jersey and Senate. And first of all, I want to thank all of you for listening to me, and some of you have listened to me drone on for quite a while. And I appreciate that, and thank you for that. I also want to say that Patty Melanson, I think, that was a very good idea. I've noticed that myself in the past. That was a real good idea that Frank Marr had too, and a few of the others were good. Anyway, I'm up here just to make a couple comments. Some of you have already heard lots. And of course, I'm here for the pool. Most people out there know that, if they know anything about me. Anyway, the main two things that I want to mention tonight are, we've heard quite a few comments about the pool schedule, which is on the agenda tonight, so I feel like y'all can actually talk about that one. So I do feel that we need to open up the pool so that all of our residents can use it during the regular scheduled hours. And so if there are any nights, Saturday and Sunday especially, that the pool has not been scheduled for a party, please do not schedule any more. So I'm talking about, from, I guess it's 6:30 on the Saturdays or Sundays. I think those times need to be kept open for our residents to use the pool. I do not think that we ought to be scheduling parties at those hours. So if there are any of those Saturdays and Sundays left in the schedule, then I would appreciate it if we didn't schedule any more parties at those times. The other thing, and I know that I guess it's not on the agenda, but I think that we need a full-time, mature adult pool manager up at that pool. I have no qualms about any of the lifeguards that we have up there right now. But I think that they need better training, and I think that they need better supervision. And I do think that that's a safety issue. I've already seen problems up there. I know that our residents and patrons of the pool have seen problems up there. And I think that it's going to take a mature adult supervisor up there at all hours. Definitely in the evenings, but it can happen during the daytimes too. And I don't think that it's going to end without one. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Susan.
Thank you, Susan.
Susan, you mentioned Saturday, Sunday nights. Do you feel Sunday night's more important than Friday night?
So I think any evening. In the past, we all know that Mondays we're all used to Mondays being the day for the parties. And so I think it was a big shock to all of us that parties were being scheduled at any other time.
I agree with you. If you were going to pick two nights, Saturday and Sunday, or Friday and Saturday.
Oh, wow. Oh, gosh. I'm not sure I'm prepared to answer that
Okay.
one.
Sorry to throw a ball at you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Susan. Michael Stonebridge.
I'm Michael Stonebridge, 15422 Jersey Drive. Good evening. I just wanted to make note of what Representative Rosenthal had said about the big aid package from Governor Abbott and the legislature. It says Governor Abbott signs $1.6 billion in state aid for Harvey and flood projects into law. And it says Governor Greg Abbott signed a bill Thursday that marks Texas' largest response yet to Hurricane Harvey, directing more than $1.6 billion from the state's savings account to repairs and flood mitigation projects. Senate Bill 7, which he said, an omnibus flood control package authored by State Senator Brandon Crichton Conroe, was among the disaster recovery bills Abbott ceremoniously signed Thursday at Gallery Furniture, the huge North Houston showroom where owner Jim Mattress McInville housed some Harvey victims. And then, so it's some type of a matching thing. I'm sure that our representative knows more. But basically, so Senate Bill 7, a flood control package authored by Senator Brandon Crichton, was the marquee bill among a stack of disaster legislation Abbott signed Thursday at Gallery Furniture. The bill pulls $1.7 billion from the state savings account to help local governments make repairs and tackle projects aimed at reducing damage in future floods. Half of the funds will go to the Water Development Board to provide flood project loans or grants, with $47 million of it set aside to create a state flood plan. The other half will provide the local match required as cities and counties tackle federally funded recovery work. And so I had found this, and there was one other thing. Okay, so the $793 million state-funded pot of mitigation money created by Senate Bill 7 will appear on the November ballot as a constitutional amendment, and so cannot be used until after January 1st, but that's just, how they're going to do it. But anyways, I just wanted to, I had seen this, and I thought that it was crucial, with the funding and everything with the flood mitigation, and my printer cartridge gave out, so this is really light. It might be difficult to read, but maybe you can find the link, so I just wanted to give that to the city manager, and I'm done.
All right, thank you, Mike. Sharon Lindo.
I'm Sharon Lindo. I live at 16238 Congo Lane, 44 years. I'm really surprised that there's not more people here concerned about the homestead and/or the over 65 exemption. I assume that there hasn't been a decision on that yet. Y'all are still voting on that, is what I understand.
We had an open discussion, an open meeting about a month ago where we came to a conclusion. There's a vote tonight to raise it.
Okay. So is it too late to say anything?
No, you can say anything.
Okay.
There's just,
well,
we're
when we
voting
bought
later. Way
back in, 1977, you get your home and you can't wait to do the exemption because you get a little bit of a tax break. Little did we know back then that we weren't getting the total exemption back then. Not because of you guys. Evidently, y'all weren't, probably some of you weren't even around. But due to somebody and something, and now it's finally come out. What a sad story. Well, now I'm 70. And I want my 65 and over exemption somewhere. But why aren't there any more people here? Am I the only old person in this neighborhood to realize that we're not getting a break? I mean, I kind of think we deserve it, maybe even a little bit more for waiting this long for it. But I know. But anyway, that's the reason I'm here tonight, to make sure that y'all understand you're going to be old once too. It's bad enough that you young guys are not getting your full homestead, but when you get 65 and over, everything kind of breaks down, and you have to do your pick and your chooses. You can't do everything, and you can't put everything on a card. Not anymore, guys. You gotta come up front and be able to save a little bit of money. So that would be great. Now, I did talk to some people this weekend who used to live out here up until 2 years ago. And do you know when they turned 65, they went down to the office where you go to protest. And somebody that was living in over a 4,000 square foot house here in Jersey Village, and mine was a little 2,100 square foot house, they were getting more of a tax break than we were. And I think it's because they went down there where they didn't protest the evaluation of their house. They protested, they're 65, they want their taxes dropped. And I'm just finding this out. They dropped tremendously. So I'm hoping that y'all will give us our full break?
There is no such thing as a full over 65. There's no cap.
There's no cap, so you can give us as much as we need.
What was
Can
it?
we vote on that?
Harbor Point gives $1 million over 65. Now, the difference is
We don't have that.
funding a police department might be difficult with that policy, but it's all a matter of balancing. That's really what it's about. And they're one of the reasons why we are looking at doing that tonight, increasing it, is because we recognize the need for some additional balance.
Okay.
And at least just speaking for myself, I don't anticipate that this will be the last time that we do that. I think we'll continually reevaluate it and look at opportunities to continue to increase it.
Okay, and then it will take effect in 2020?
Correct. Your tax bill that you will get towards the end of this year.
Okay, okay.
Assuming it passes tonight. I don't want to presume anything, but
I know. I hope so too. If not, I think there will be a lot of disappointed people, and then maybe we'll have more people. I don't know. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. Mark Malloy.
Okay, got to start this all over again. Mark Malloy, 7803 Hamilton Circle, past City Council member of the City of Jersey Village, Texas. Citizens' comments for the 06/17/2019 City Council meeting. Please make my verbal comments and documents given to the City Secretary a permanent record of the meeting. I'm here to talk about the city-owned, still being paid for, extremely taxpayer-subsidized golf course currently showing on the most recent city finance report to have a negative fund balance of $4,369,430.47 deficit. And this is not counting the original purchase cost, including principal, interest, and the Jersey Village, and then the other thing is the Jersey Village homeowners not getting their 20% homestead property tax exemption, and the 65-year and older home owners with a homestead exemption not getting the additional $160,000 exemption that is given by Harris County and the City of Houston for their retired elderly and disabled if they meet the 100% disabled status. Okay, so anyway, like I said, I'm going to talk about the golf course. And the golf course clubhouse construction bid has come in, from what I see from the information from the city council packet, is estimated to be now twice what the city council estimated it to cost. And this all started with the city government considering renovating the existing golf course clubhouse for an estimated cost of $300,000 to $700,000. The city government then decided to build a new clubhouse for an estimated $1.2 million, and then a new golf course clubhouse and convention center for an estimated $2.4 million. The city government has gotten their bid proposals back, and now the city government is looking at several options, one of which is working with a contractor with the highest bid of $7 million. The city government is not approving the $7 million bid, hopefully, but will consider asking the contractor to work to come up with an acceptable cost to build their dream facility. On top of this, the city government is planning on spending anywhere from $700,000, but I believe will be much more, to have a contractor connect a supplemental treated wastewater irrigation system for the golf course by piping treated sewer water from the city's Castlebridge waste treatment plant located east of the Sam's Club and Metro Park and Ride to the golf course. The question I have to ask is, how much more of the Jersey Village community's money is the city government going to waste on a non-essential city government want, not taxpayer need? This is just one of the reasons why the Jersey Village city government won't or can't give the Jersey Village homeowners that have a homestead exemption filed with Harris County the maximum 20% property tax exemption, and the 65-year and older homesteaded property owners the additional $160,000 exemption that Harris County and the City of Houston give their retired, elderly, and disabled citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Is there anyone else desiring to speak Okay, move along. Oh, I apologize. Merilee, go ahead.
Okay, so hi, I'm Merilee Beasley, 14910 Lakeview Drive. I've lived here for about 38 years. I now live in my third house, and I'm going to be 70 on my next birthday. So I know what Sharon's talking about, and I'm very concerned about the fact that we don't seem to have a very generous homestead exemption in Jersey Village, and I am very concerned because of what Mark just mentioned about somebody started out talking about $300,000 to possibly renovate the clubhouse, and now some people are entertaining the idea of $7 million. Now, I don't know about you guys, but $7 million from $300,000 or $300,000 to $600,000 is a huge jump. And I'm very concerned because I don't see where the money's going to come from if you guys give us a generous homestead exemption and if you do something about the property taxes. And they're very high in Jersey Village. And I understand there are people who have had to move away because they can't afford to live here. But anyway, as many of you know, I am a registered nurse. And one of the things that came to my attention this afternoon at looking at next door, and I don't know if it's on the agenda because I just didn't have time to research it, is this information that has to do with our mayor and his brewery pub for JV. Now, as a nurse, I'm very concerned about our mayor and his friends' investment for us, or for them, in this brewery pub. And I'm concerned because alcoholism the excess use of or abuse of alcohol and other drugs is a serious public health problem in the United States of America. So I'm concerned about, and I wrote on Nextdoor that I was concerned about some of the liability issues, because if something happened and something dire happened and somebody got hurt because of this effort that is up there, with the pub brewery, or brewery pub, I don't know if the city fathers or city council would be implicated because they had approved some ordinances so that this investment could go on. So I want you please to take this very seriously about if you decide to do this. In addition to that, it seems to me like this is a huge conflict of interest. So please very carefully consider doing all of this. Anyway, one of the things I also have been very concerned about, and I could be wrong about this, but I understand that this year, for the very first time, the Jersey Village swim team was charged money for the use of the pool. And as far as I know, that has never been done before. Another thing that it came to my attention is that the pool membership jumped from $50 to $100 in one season, and I also believe there's a separate charge for the aerobics class. Now, I personally don't need the pool because when we moved, it turned out the house we bought, we weren't looking for a pool, but it had one. I have always wanted to belong to the pool, even if I never used it, just because I like the idea of supporting the pool, because I was a synchronized swimmer in high school, and I love swimming and so forth. So I'm very concerned about this huge jump, and I don't understand why there is a huge jump. Now, another thing that I'm very concerned is that sometimes we have had special meetings in the last year where there was no chance to have a public comment about anything. I also am concerned that there was no feasibility study for the Jersey Meadow Golf Course Convention Center. I don't understand why that wasn't conducted, because that would have been funded by the hotel occupancy tax. I also don't understand why the city of Jersey Village is in the land business, and that the residents, even though there was at least a year to vote on it, we weren't allowed to vote on that purchase. And I don't understand, because it seems to me like we are now in the land business, and I'm not sure that's an appropriate use of the taxpayers' money, because after all, the city of Jersey Village is funded by us. You serve us, and what I see is that you guys have to keep raising taxes over the years. And for instance, why don't we have electronic voting like most small cities? Because, is it because we can't afford it? Or I don't know. And why in the world has the Jersey Meadow Golf Course been allowed to not have a business plan? So I don't understand that. So another thing I don't understand is why we don't close the golf cart bridge, because that bridge is rated for only 5 tons.
Time, Merilee. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Is there anyone else desiring to speak? Ruby, come on up.
Hi, my name is Ruby Camp, 15305 Leeds Lane. First of all, I want to apologize. I didn't fill out a form because I'd planned to listen and never talk. But I have a question. Someone asked how much was the over 65 exemption before it was taken away. And Bobby, it seemed kind of cavalier to say it could be up to $1 million. It was over 100,000 at 1.120, 1.140, and at 1.160,000. But does anybody have the figure? If not, I think we need to look at that and really let us know what we lost. And I think it goes back to around the first flood, maybe the second one, when someone said it might be a good idea to give up part of the tax exemptions that we have for homestead and over 65 and put this in a reserve for an actual rainy day fund. And everybody, they asked our opinion, and we all raised our hand and said, we think that's good. That way we could fix all the streets. And streets were fixed. But at some point, it was going to end. We were going to get our exemptions back. And I thought, as many people thought, that it was going to end. I don't know the exact figures for the exemption that we had back then. I can't recall them, but I'd like for somebody on city council to let us know. But certainly not. Don't say somewhere around $1 million. Please don't do that, Mr. Warren.
No, I was using that as an example because people have cited a max exemption. There is no such thing. We can make it whatever we want.
Yes, we know
To
that.
answer your question, so prior to 2009, there was no over 65 exemption. The city did not have one. I'm actually looking at the ordinance right now. Ordinance number 2009-30, passed on June 15, 2009, instituted the current exemption we have, which is 50,000. So 2009 was the very first time it was done. Tonight, there's a proposal to increase it to 75,000. It has never been at any higher level.
Well, I could be wrong, but I remember them saying, well, what was that around the flood time? Could somebody look into that? Because I thought it was just going to be a temporary thing for streets. And again, all I'm asking is that somebody looks into figures. And again, I apologize for not filling out a form. Thank you so much.
That's right, Ruby. Thank you. All right. Anybody else? Okey doke. We move on to city manager's report. Mr. Blease.
Mayor and councilors, the manager's report is in front of you tonight, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have. I did also want to mention one more piece of information. Last week, I was notified that the International City County Management Association, ICMA, is going to be awarding the city their Community Sustainability Award for our long-term flood recovery study. With that award, ICMA recognizes the innovative local government programs or processes that demonstrate innovation, excellence, and success in balancing the community's social, economic, and environmental and cultural needs. An independent awards panel reviewed several applications. The panel consisted of over 17 people from U.S. and international members. I was told it was a very competitive process this year. So it's a very exciting thing, very prestigious award for the city to be receiving this from ICMA. They'll be doing a full media release in the coming weeks. The city will be recognized at their annual conference in October. And this is definitely a great honor for the city of Jersey Village and highlights the great work that we are doing to prevent future flooding in our community.
Great work. That's a great news. Anybody have anything for city manager's report? I wanted to point out just a couple things, just to kind of point out the services that the city does from the report. Oh, do you have something, Gary?
Well, I had looked at the golf course financial report, and there was a number there that might be alarming to some people. I asked about it and with Jason, and I talked to him, and I got a very good explanation, but I wanted to point out that under the operating expenses, the other category had $102,000 in it, and that just didn't seem right because you wouldn't think other expenses would have something that big. But if Jason, you want to go ahead and explain it?
So the other category is consists of 4 different things. One of them is the cost of sales, which was roughly $15,813. Sundry, which is our credit card charges, That equals a little over $6,000. The next one was Sundry was Water Authority, which was $15,000. And that kind of tied in hand with our capital improvements, which was the big number. That was $65,600. So the way, it's my understanding, the way Isabel was explaining it to me is that the auditors like to see it this way. So the largest piece of that is the capital improvements, which is our supplementals. So that was put into there, the $65,000.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes.
That's the way the financials are presented in the CAFR. Those items are included in others.
All right, we can move on to the consent agenda. Do you have a motion on the consent agenda?
I move we approve this consent agenda as it is.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Move on to the regular session, agenda item number 1, consider resolution number 2019-34, appointing directors to fulfill unexpired terms ending August 31st, 2020. So we're appointing for the Crime Control Prevention District, appointing for the TERS Board, and appointing for Recs and Events Committee. I'll open discussion amongst council for those nominations.
I'll speak first. As always, I'm looking for to get as many people as possible involved in the city. And
real quick, let's do it committee by committee. You think? So let's start with CCPD first.
Okay, well, I'm gonna say the same thing though. I'm looking to get as many people as possible involved in city work, and looking at the list and what we had here, the best way I can do that is by putting a slate forward, and I'm still leaving one person out, but it's just it's gonna happen that way. And I hope this person won't get discouraged and keeps trying, but for CCPD, I'm nominating Sherry Shepard.
Okay, anybody have more discussion on CCPD?
I will say, I took the same approach Gary did when looking at this, which I tried to look at it holistically in terms of trying to sort of see what people applied for and how we can get as many of them in a committee as possible. Also looking, as we have in the past, at trying to get new people involved. I think in this particular slot, because of Nora Hahn's application elsewhere that I think makes it an obvious one, I would also agree with Sherry Shepard. It has the added benefit, of course, she has been on the CCPD before when she was on council. She could get right into the role with zero adjustment to sort of what the CCPD does. So I think she makes the most sense on this one.
Okay. Anybody else have discussion on that, or? Okay. Let's move on to the TERS Board. Anybody have discussion on our nominees? We have Sherry Shepard, Robert Ottman, and Judy Tidwell for the TERS Board.
I looked at the current TERS Board members and think that the best complement, since Sherry went to CCPD, it leaves 2 left, and the best complement to the current TERS Board is going to be Judy Tidwell.
I will say, I think that any one of the applicants could do a great job. I really have kind of gone back and forth between Robert Ottman and Judy Tidwell, again, in the interest of trying to sort of spread out the people who are being appointed. If Sherry Shepard was the CCPD applicant that was chosen, going between Robert Ottman and Judy Tidwell, I have to admit, I've talked to both of them, and I think they would both contribute greatly to it. I do think that Robert Ottman's kind of experience might add a little bit more to the CCPD, but I think either one would do fine. That to me is almost a coin flip. But if I had to choose, I would choose Robert Ottman.
All right, we have one for Judy, one for Robert. Anybody else have a leaning either way?
I was I was impressed by all 3 applicants, Robert and Judy, and both of them also applied for this position. I think they're all well qualified. I through discussions, at least with Robert, I can certify. I haven't had the chance to talk to Judy about it, but I know that Robert would be a good fit for TERS.
Yeah, I'm backing Judy Tidwell. Just the preparation that she did when she was putting her name in for the council position, I think it shows the amount of effort she'd put into this job.
I would agree with Gary.
Okay. So let's move on and talk about our applicants for Recs and Events. We have Nora Hahn and Sonia Tiarina. Hopefully I didn't butcher that name.
There are 2 open spots, 2 applicants. Easy.
I wish they were all that easy.
Here we have 2 positions, 2 applications. I was going to suggest Sonia for position 5 and Nora for position 2.
Okay. So we have had our discussion. I need somebody to put forward a motion to nominate a slate of candidates and a second after that.
James, what were those slots again for R&E?
Hey, I've got it. We can do. I'd like to move that we appoint Sherry Shepard to the Crime Control Prevention District. Recommend Judy Tidwell for the open TERS position. Move to appoint Sonia Terrion to position 5 of Rec and Events and Nora Hahn to position 2 Rec and Events.
Probably going to want to make that motion in the context of approving the resolution.
Secretary says she has it.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion on the topic? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Move on to item number 2. Consider ordinance number 2019 modifying the disabled person exemption, residential homestead exemption, and the over 5 homestead exemption for the city of Jersey Village. Doesn't have anybody on that name. I guess that just makes it me.
Yeah, I just didn't put in.
I think I'm going to open the discussion, and I'm going to look in this general direction for discussion. Go ahead.
I'll since I got this ball rolling in before November, but really this particular ball rolling in November of last year. I guess I'll pick it up. So obviously we've had a lot of discussions, and we have looked at a lot of numbers, and I think that this is a great example of kind of what what we can achieve when we really get into sort of the closest thing we get to like a real legislative process here on council, where we're really looking at data, we're kind of shaping policy and trying to find something that both balances out the need to ensure that we are always looking to taxpayers and ensuring that we are only asking them to contribute what is necessary in order to achieve the goals and to complete the projects that taxpayers, the electorate, have sent us here to do. We have put the time into this, understanding that making the decision in November would have not changed anything compared to making the decision now. And at the end of the day, I think we all came to an agreement in principle during our budget retreat. It is not what I would have proposed if I were the only member of council and got to dictate policy, but that's why we have a council, so that we can all have differing opinions and come at it from different viewpoints. But I think that this is a very good proposal, and I will note that this will be the first tax cut, and when you're looking strictly at rates and exemptions in the city, since at least looking at what we just mentioned earlier about the institution of an over 65 exemption that did not exist before 2009. It had gone unchanged in 10 years. The homestead exemption had gone unchanged since 2003. And so, for the reason I mentioned that is because we are doing something that no council has done in a very long time. And certainly I don't think any council has ever gone across the board and cut taxes using all 3 exemptions. What we're looking at tonight is we are looking at an over 65 exemption increase from the current 50,000 to 75,000. We are looking at a disabled exemption going from the current I don't see, it's 25,000, sorry, it's not here on the memo, to 75,000, and looking at an increase of the homestead exemption from 6% to 14%. I'm sorry? A raise of 6% from 8%. Oh, I'm sorry, raise of 6%. Sorry, I misread that. From 8% to 14, so it would be it would go up by 6 points. It would result in a estimated revenue loss per year of $387,000. It does not jeopardize any of the projects that we currently have in the capital improvement plan. It does not in any way jeopardize our reserve. And if, of course, this is all taking into account a very conservative approach, assuming some things don't break our way, assuming that we don't get certain, assuming no grants, assuming we just pay for all of our current projects out of pocket. So to the degree that any of those things do fall our way, maybe sales tax revenues go up more than we expected, maybe we get certain grants that we're currently not counting on. As those things occur, obviously, we're going to come back and revisit this in future years. But I think the important thing, the watershed moment, is that we have, as a council, set the precedent now that we are going to look at that this is going to be a topic of conversation. I don't know amongst you how many of you, I know we've heard from a lot of people, even tonight, but we've heard it before, where people didn't even realize kind of how the exemptions worked or what amount it was or any of these things until we really started talking about it in earnest in November. And I'm glad that people now know because that means that this will continue. We will continue to look at this. We will continue to be mindful of it. And not to say that prior councils didn't, but I think that having it in the forefront is extremely important from a taxpayer standpoint. So I'm proud that we got to this point, and I look forward to being able to bump this even more in future years as things go well. Yeah, thank you. Actually, we should probably talk about the per person savings. So it would result in an average, for someone who's only receiving the residential exemption, it would be an estimated savings of $128 per year. The average homeowner with the disability exemption would see a savings of $408.38 per year. And then the average homeowner with the over 65 exemption would see an estimated savings of $185.63 per year. Keeping in mind that the residential homestead stacks with either the over 65 or the disabled homestead, so that's combined in those instances.
You get both?
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
If you apply for both.
Okay. Does anybody else have a discussion? Want to discuss this topic?
Well, just a quick comment. Discussing property taxes, I think it kind of points out that homeowners need to be proactive in their assessed values, and that's going down to Harris County Appraisal District, protesting your taxes. If you don't know how to do it, hire a professional to do it for you. It's very affordable. If you don't have the exemptions that you're entitled to, follow up with Harris County. Jersey Village represents about 25 or 30% of your total tax bill, a very small percentage. But you probably see your tax dollars at work more so here than any other tax you pay. Harris County School District, you see your tax dollars spent here. But again, just kind of be proactive with your taxes. Do your part to lower them as well.
I'd agree. Protest at any chance you get. The professionals get paid out of what they save you. Somebody mentioned here tonight that they weren't sure where all this spawned from. Who discovered this and brought this up as a point of contention to be raised? And the earliest person I can think of was a year and a half ago when Bobby mentioned it to me. I think the best I can understand the credit should go to Bobby in researching and finding this out. Nobody else was looking at this until he started talking about it as a campaign item almost 2.5, 3 years ago, maybe more. So.
One other quick comment. One other quick comment about the process we used. We didn't arbitrarily come up with these numbers. This was numbers that we came up with looking at long-term cash projections and looking at how much money that we have in our reserve, how much over the reserve. There was a process involved. So you can speak with us more in detail if you'd like, but this was not an arbitrary number. It is tied to our budget, to our projections.
And to that point, you know, and to Bobby's point too, is this is now kind of like part of our budgeting process, because we had a special work session just for this topic where the mother of all spreadsheets was produced. Good job, Austin. Where changing one single percent changed all of the projections for 10 years down the road. And that's another thing, is typically the councils look at our 5-year capital improvement plan when we do budgeting. This time we decided to do 10 years down the road, because there's a lot of projects coming up down the road. We're going to continue to do street improvements, continue to improve our police and fire. There's still things that are beyond the purview that were typically in a 5-year plan way on the right-hand side, just down the road. But this actually allowed us to get down into the weeds and look at what those projects will actually cost, not just, you know, on the right-hand side of a spreadsheet. This was a very thorough process. And so I'm comfortable with these numbers. And again, to Bobby's point, this is going to be, it seems to be a process that we'll definitely do, at least under my administration, whatever you want to call it, for every council cycle, every budget cycle from here on out. So this likely is not the stopping point, in my opinion, if I'm reading that correctly. So the impact to the city is a $387,000 loss in revenue. I wanted to point that out as well. But again, we went over, I don't want anybody about, you know, who's worried about the loss in revenue and will that impact our services, will that impact any projects down the road, to become worried about it. It's manageable, and again, the mother of all spreadsheets definitely laid that out for us, made me feel more comfortable. Is there any more discussion on top? Yes, Bobby.
I just want to mention one more thing, and I know it's been brought up a few times, you know, and I understand the inclination to do it. I mean, we do it in a lot of other policy areas where there's the comparative analysis between us versus Harris County versus the city of Houston. It is extremely hard to make that comparison for a few reasons. Number one, our city relies disproportionately on single-family home property taxes, and that's just because of the fact that we have a lot of single-family homes compared to other types of properties. That's just the makeup of it. It's not by design or anything like that. It just happens to be the case. So we have, I think, out of all of our assessed taxable value available in the city, almost half is single-family homes. We're not talking about apartment buildings or anything like that. Just your single-family homes, the main part of the city of Jersey Village. If you look at city of Houston, it's really more like 35%. Now, if you're looking at the county, that's a whole other beast entirely, because how many times do you see county police patrolling your streets? Never. Do you want to rely upon the sheriff's office for your police? No. There are places that do, and they pay a lot less in taxes, but they pay in other ways too. Imagine calling the sheriff's office to find out how long it takes for them to get out there. So it's just a completely different beast.
Hey, we do try.
Okay, hey, I'm not getting on the fire inspection side. But
I don't know. We're with the sheriff.
Yeah, but the point is that there's a lot of areas where the county isn't really responsible for providing a full slate of services. So they're just structured completely differently, and they also have a lower percentage of residential. I think it's about 40% of their assessed taxable values, single-family residences. So they can offer a large exemption for very little cost to them to their overall revenue. We simply don't have that luxury. That being said, things like economic development that we've been working on, Village Center, bringing in Argos USA, these are all part of an effort to try to change that balance so that we can start to move that needle in the other direction. And so this is all part and parcel of an effort to try to reduce the burden on the taxpayer by boosting other areas of our tax base.
Here. Any other discussion on the topic? All right. Looking for a motion.
I move to approve ordinance number 2019-19.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on the topic? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, I'm going to propose moving one agenda item. There's a lot of people in the audience, and this is a long meeting, so I wanted to move one of the agenda items up. I want to move agenda item number 11, which is about the pool, up. So let's go ahead and discuss that topic. So item number 11, discuss and take appropriate action concerning the 2019 Clark Henry pool schedule. Bobby Warren.
Thank you, Mayor. The reason my name's on this is because I asked our city secretary to place this item on the agenda. I heard from a number of citizens, some of whom are in this audience, expressing some concerns about the schedule at the pool. It was a pretty big change compared to prior years. And so what I wanted to do, granted, I've had a lot of conversations with city staff since this was placed on the agenda, but I thought that it would be good for the council to discuss it in order to maybe provide provide city staff some insight that maybe we have received from citizen comments, and maybe brainstorm some ways that maybe we can make some tweaks to the schedule and to discuss the schedule so that there's some clarity on exactly what hours are available and how maybe that does compare to other communities, and also see if there's a way we can make some changes possibly that might address some of the concerns.
Okay. So I want to open up the floor to, or Austin, did you, any of your department heads want to make any comments, or?
So, Mayor, I'll just to clear up a few things here. Then we've got this information in the council packet as well. So right now we've got a few pool rentals scheduled. We've got a couple of Saturday mornings and a couple of Saturday evenings. So Saturday, June 22nd from 7 to 9, and Saturday, August 10th from 7 to 9. The other two are August 17th and 24th in the mornings. For this year, we have sold, as of the 12th, 111 pool family passes. Average membership on those is 5 people. So for those, for average there, that cost an additional $25 compared to last year for their family pool passes. 33 water aerobic passes and 27 individual passes for a total of 171 memberships.
I think I'll just make a couple of comments because I did sit down with several citizens, and it's hard to list all the concerns. And I know that a lot of concerns were sent to the city, and the city made a spreadsheet, sort of I call it, yeah, Bobby helped out with that, and I know some citizens did as well. They sent in comments, and I know a spreadsheet was made, sort of like a punch list of items, either about the quality of the pool, about concerns that citizens have seen, and I think we need to periodically make sure that those are being addressed. And I know I have full faith that your staff is looking into.
I believe we've already addressed a majority of those, and the other ones we're still working to get taken care of.
Okay. The other concern that I heard was about the price of the pass increase, and the price of things increase, and that's just the nature of the beast. But it felt like even with the price going up, the availability of the pool went down, and that was the biggest concern. And so I think I sympathize with the citizen comments about rentals that are happening on weekends, because most families I know in Jersey Village tend to be busy during the week, and the weekend is sort of the family time. And when the citizens were used to Mondays being the rental day, and it feels like this is just the perception, the feeling, whatever it is. The feeling is that prices went up, availability went down, and the biggest offender, at least from what I've seen, has been the weekend rentals. And so, I don't think we're going to really make any visceral changes tonight. I think what we're going to do is give suggestions because the schedule's already made, the rentals have already been made. I'm not telling you guys, hey, go back and kick those people out. It's not going to happen. We can't do that. But perhaps next year, this should be something that's taken under advisement, is weekend rentals. Potentially save those for Monday, as it was in previous years. The next issue that I was brought to my attention, and something that I think that you guys should look into, is the price of the pass itself went up, and that was accepted by a lot of people, but the water aerobics pass is a separate pass, and it felt like in previous years, if you had a pool pass that was $50, it included a lot of things, and then this year the price was bumped up, and so was the aerobics. So to those members, it was a double whammy. It was a bigger increase than just the family. So for me, it seems like, at least for water aerobics, that we need to consider having the family pass just include the water aerobics, because I think that's. I think it requires the same amount of manpower. I think it's our job as a city is to provide services to citizens, and our seniors definitely participate in that program in healthy numbers, and it makes them healthier. It makes our community healthier. I think that it also would cut down on the confusion, because I think there was a lot of confusion this year. And it's the first year, it happens, but this type of thing, it's just very confusing for the lifeguards. Someone walks in with, I have an aerobics pass or I have a family pass. Have a family pass. Go participate in those water aerobics. Get it on. That's really what I'm proposing. What I think you guys should consider for next year as well. Those are my main comments. Is there anybody else who has other comments?
The only other thing I was going to say is I'm glad James brought up the issue regarding sort of the weekend and sort of what tends to be the priority. One thing, and I don't envy, as I've told them many times, I don't envy our city staff at all, because I know in a lot of ways y'all, in terms of trying to figure out kind of how to adjust the schedule to make it more available for rentals, you were kind of having to sort of feel things out almost in the dark regarding use of the pool, because I don't know if any of y'all know, but there's very limited data regarding the use of the pool in terms of data. Yeah, we've got anecdotal knowledge in terms of, we usually feel like there are more people at these times or that time, but it was not being tracked at the pool on an hourly basis. It is now. There are counts being done, I think, on an hourly basis. So we will know over the course of this season what tend to be more popular times than others, and that will help us be able to make the pool available more. But what I have kind of heard that, just based on what I've heard from citizens, is that it could be that we could still retain a substantial amount of the rental period, but shift it around a little bit in order to make the open swim available at times that are more popular. For example, and just throwing this out there, and I think it's going to require a lot more input to get a good sense of it for next year, is that if we were, say, to, instead of doing Saturdays and Sundays, maybe make it all Sunday evenings. Because right now, and this is the other thing too, is, and as I've mentioned to the city staff, part of our problem also is we may not have done the best job of communicating exactly what changes were made or when the open swim's available. There were a lot of people that still thought that there was no open swim during swim lessons or no open swim during water aerobics in the evening. In fact, they were available then. There was a little bit of kind of difficulty communicating when the pool was actually going to be open during what would be a rental period and when it was not. And so those are things we have to work on. But let's say if we moved, instead of, one of the things a lot of people didn't know is that it's the second and fourth weekends of the month where the rentals are happening, not every weekend. The total amount of open swim lost from last year compared to this year for the entire season is only 14 hours. So it's actually a relatively small amount unless the numbers change.
No, that 14 hours is if only all of the rentals occurred.
Correct. So that's assuming all the rentals have been booked, which they haven't. We really only have 4 rentals right now that are still booked, and only 2 of those are in the evening. Obviously we're not going to settle on anything tonight, but I would suggest looking at, for next year, shifting more of those maybe to Sunday evening if our data shows that Sunday evening is not as popular. Maybe it is. Just to me, I think the idea of parents having to go to work on Monday might make it less popular than Saturday evening. And one thing...
Basically what you're saying is use our data from this year to figure out which ones are the slowest times and then
try to schedule
on those.
Exactly. And the other thing that I would suggest maybe for this year is that we do look at opportunities to be able to close out some of those rental periods and just open them up now. Maybe not necessarily all of them, but I think if we can at least start to kind of carve some of those out and say these will definitely be open, we do those as soon as we're able to. I know right now we're trying to shoot for a little more than a week out. I think, the Friday or the Thursday before that? So a little more than a week out. So, if we can find a way to be able to do that even sooner, I think that would be good. It would kind of, again, open up the pool a little bit more. People will have more certainty. We'll have more opportunity to communicate that to people, just to, again, try to maximize our open swim.
What's our Saturday hours by chance?
I'm sorry?
Normal Saturday hours?
I believe it's 12 o'clock to 9 o'clock. If we do not have a rental, then we open it up at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Okay. My comment moving forward is that you try to stay consistent with your times. I think rentals were kind of secondary, especially if they're interrupting with the general swim. But I think it's important to have consistent and posted hours and work rentals around those posted hours, because as a consumer, if I'm going to Fajita Willie's and they should be open at 8:30, if they close for a private party, I'm a little disappointed. So I think you need to have consistent hours where somebody doesn't have to necessarily look at a schedule to determine whether it's open or not. It should always be open during those specific times.
I would certainly echo Greg's comment to consistent hours. I had a good sit down with Austin. I've talked to a lot of citizens. I found the city very responsive to all of the feedback that I gave about the schedule, the publishing methods. I would encourage you, if you ever have a problem with the city department, talk to the department head, talk to the city manager. They're a very responsive group to concerns. One of the things I've heard here tonight is a shock that rentals were not occurring on Mondays. Jason, if I remember correctly, we had some concerns with doing rentals on Monday and getting proper pool maintenance done during the week. Is that correct?
That is correct. We also needed to conduct our in-service trainings during that day and have our deep cleans taken care of during our Mondays. So if we needed to shock the pool, Monday would be the perfect time to be able to do that, because of the time that we need to be able to close the pool until we can open the pool if we do have those kind of strong chemicals in the water.
Okay, thank you. And then there was a lot of other hours provided in the packet today that should, when I compare to our city to other cities, we actually have a wide range of open swim compared to some of the other cities. We're not talking about fee schedules here tonight, but I do want city, let's review this and come back about past rates next year. I think we could probably tweak those a little bit. As far as the daily passes, I think we could tweak those a whole lot sooner. And so if we need to do anything there, then please bring that up.
Drew, go ahead.
James, did you mean the daily passes in terms of resident, non-resident? Did you have or both? I mean, I was being vague, but my real thought is changing the non-resident day pass. But fees is not on the agenda tonight, so I didn't want to dig into that. That's fair. And Jason, I know we had talked last week about the Sunday rental or Monday rentals, and you had explained the in-service and the other things. My thought would be another way to look at it, if possible, because that seems to be, is if there's possible, cut back the Sunday night. If we're seeing that there's not a lot of attendance, cut that back to like 6 or 6:30, 7, and use those hours for maintenance if you can, if Monday allows for that.
Okay.
Just an idea.
Jason?
Yes, sir.
How are private parties handled prior to this schedule?
One more time, I'm sorry?
How were private parties handled prior to this schedule?
Last year they were handled basically through the pool. They would touch base with the pool. They would contact them and have the pool party scheduled typically on Mondays.
But they could do it any day?
No, just on Mondays from what I can recall.
So private parties were only on Mondays?
From what I can recall, yes, sir.
Okay. Obviously, there's a big issue has been risen on this now, and I think for the benefit of staff and better decision making, information gathering is your best friend here. And so the more information you can gather on usage and anything else, it's going to help you next year.
Most definitely.
Yeah, I think to James' point and Gary's point, prior years there really wasn't a tally of how many people were in at a certain hour. I mean, it should be treated as a restaurant basically. What's your foot traffic between 5 and 6? What's your foot traffic between 7 and 8? And then adjust your hours that way. That's really kind of how something that provides a service like the pool should be run. And so I know you had definitely not that much to work off of, but I know you're doing that this year. You're keeping track of usage, and so this off season we need to look at that data and adjust accordingly. I think that does anybody have any more comments, any more input to city staff on this topic? Okay. I'm really sorry, but we can't.
It's also not on the agenda for the safety issues.
It's not on the agenda for safety issues. But if you would like to stay after, we would absolutely. Anybody. Absolutely, and you can absolutely bring it up to us at any time. You can also contact us through email and phone and everything that way. But after this meeting, if you're a trooper and you stay the whole meeting, you're absolutely welcome to come talk to us.
Yeah, and I want to encourage anyone who sees a serious safety issue, don't wait, contact us immediately. We want to correct it before anything happens. So please call the city, call City Hall. You can talk to Austin Blease. He will make sure that it gets handled.
All right. We're going to move on to item 4. All right, item number 3. Consider ordinance number 2019-20, amending the Code of Ordinances, City of Jerseyville, Texas, Chapter 14, Building and Development, Article 20, Section 14663, Restrictions on Building Operations Generally, for the purpose of including restrictions for federal holidays, providing a penalty, providing for severability, providing for publication, and providing an effective date. Christian Summers, Building Official.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. During the Memorial Day holiday, commercial construction crews engaged in construction activity at a location adjacent to a residential neighborhood in the city. Because of the nature of the work, the homeowners complained that they were not able to enjoy their backyards for holiday celebrations due to the loud noise coming from the construction site. In receiving the complaint, staff has reviewed the current city code and has found that construction work is currently permitted between the hours of 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. on weekdays. There are no regulations for holiday work when the holiday falls on a workday. Staff is of the opinion that regulations should be put in place to restrict construction work on federal holidays with a few exceptions. Accordingly, a proposed ordinance with staff's recommendation has been prepared for council's review. This item is to discuss the proposed ordinance and the text modifications.
Okay, open discussion.
So Christian, a citizen came to you with a complaint, you drafted a draft ordinance, and that's what we have today.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Christian, I don't know to what degree you looked at other cities or familiar with other cities' regulations similar to this. Is it common to also restrict, I guess I should ask, is it common to restrict on weekends? And is it common to restrict on certain federal holidays, generally construction work in this nature?
It is actually not.
Yeah, I looked at Bel Air and I noticed that they really only put a day restriction on work in the public right-of-way. If it's completely on the property of the person doing the construction, it's only the hours, which makes sense because sleeping hours, that kind of thing.
That's correct.
But as far as a weekend, my only concern here is going to be, I totally sympathize with the holidays and things of that nature, but I frequently hear from people who are concerned about, to some degree, our regulations potentially causing some companies not to work here, potentially causing the cost of projects to be more than they would be. Now, keeping in mind, most of our code comes straight from international codes. They're shared by everyone else. Now, maybe we actually enforce them, which some jurisdictions might not. But this is one area where maybe you can provide some insight as to maybe how this might impact.
Certainly. I actually think it's going to make it easier for a contractor to work. If you see some of the language that was excised, it didn't allow for repairs. Can you imagine having your air conditioning system go out on July 9th and having to endure no repairs? The codes actually only speak to obtaining a permit on the next business day, but the codes allow for repairs. So I actually believe we've made it less restrictive in regards to a homeowner working on a fence, a do-it-yourself project, calling a contractor to come in and fix a water heater, your ventilation system, something very important like that to your comfort and well-being, but also ensure that the federal holidays are not interfered with. I actually chose to utilize federal holidays. After a Google search, I realized there were double the number of national holidays. I don't quite know about the distinction and why that is.
So I noticed in the ordinance, it does not include President's Day or Columbus Day. It allows for residential fencing projects and MEP projects in occupied spaces. So, for example, if your air conditioning breaks on July 4th, you can call the AC guy, and it doesn't.
Yes, sir. But if there's a new home going up next door, the air conditioning rough-in should not occur on Saturday.
Right.
My personal opinion is, a little bit to Bobby's point, is that Jersey Village and other cities like us have a reputation for being difficult to work in because of the regulations. And I understand why regulations are important, and I'm not arguing that point. I happen to think that this is probably an unnecessary restriction. I think that on a rare occasion that it happens, I'm sorry it happens, but it is a very rare occasion. We've got a lot of projects coming up. Clubhouse, the city's village center, and other projects, and to put more restrictions. I understand there are provisions to allow them to work with permission, but my experience in the construction industry, it's usually more of a forgiveness and a permission process. I'm really not in favor of it. I mean, if I've got my holidays correct, Martin Luther King Day on a Monday, although we may be a federal holiday, I'm still going to work. Veterans Day on a Wednesday, I'm going.
And we'll still have a council meeting on MLK Day.
We will. Is that a federal? Would that be an excluded holiday?
For construction activities,
For construction.
anything that people would find noisome, meaning bothersome, which is usually something that's noisy.
Well, I would leave the other less restrictive things that you put in there. The only other thing I might consider is that construction abutting a residence or residential zone, perhaps. But just a blanket, can't work on holidays on a weekday, I think is a little onerous and unfair, to be honest with you.
Yes, sir. It can certainly be reworked and reworded. We tend to have allowed for commercial projects along 290, those affected by the widening of 290, those who had to demo, those who had to truncate the building, those who had to rebuild or add additions, redevelop, even all the way to the Sam's Club if they're replacing their rooftop units, if they have to do work on their walk-in coolers on the weekend. I've always given them the exception because it would have been too onerous not to have done that, and they did not abut or directly abut residential areas.
You say you wrote this in response to a complaint. Is there a history of complaints regarding something like this, or was this kind of a one-off inconvenience?
This is actually a first. The subdivision that did complain, they actually in their own covenants allow for weekend work. When I came over from Sugar Land in 2008, I actually told the construction crews they could not work because our regulations were more restrictive.
So by their subdivision covenants, they can work, but by city, they cannot.
That's correct.
Yeah, I'm not interested in making it more restricted, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and you know, kind of to Greg's point here regarding the holidays, you know, my company makes me work on MLK Day, but we have President's Day off, so it kind of almost works the opposite way here. Judge them if you want, but I'm just offering that as a fact. I think to Greg's point, if we can more narrowly tailor it to address the specific issue of construction occurring adjacent to, maybe within so many feet of a residence, something along those lines, that might make it a little bit more narrowly tailored.
Not for me. I mean, we've got a one-off deal. We've got one of my favorite sayings, we've got a solution looking for a problem. A one-off, it does not necessitate this type of restriction to affect everybody. I'm sorry, it just doesn't rise to that level.
When I was in the private sector, managing the construction of homes, both those who employed me and those who were looking for the home or project to be finished would encourage you to work every day, save for New Year's and Christmas. And that's how it usually worked out for the construction crews as well. Until that point, they moved in, and then they didn't want people working on a Saturday morning. But
well, my comment would be if it continues and there are more issues and more complaints and it rises to the next level, then I think that would be appropriate time to deal with it, but not at this point.
duly noted.
Christian, who's around to enforce it?
I'm sorry, Gary?
It's on the holiday. Who's around to enforce it?
Austin was, unfortunately. I wish he was. He probably wishes he was in Surfside with me fishing, but he had to deal with most of it.
People definitely reached out to me on that day, reached out to Christian as well, called dispatch. So, I mean, the police officers were looking at it too.
I'm tending to agree that we could possibly narrow this down a little more. If police officers going out there, possibly just, I know he needs a little bit of teeth to be able to get something to happen, but just talking to the crew, doing their work a little bit differently and still being able to accomplish something. I'm looking for a little bit better solution than this.
Yes, sir.
Christian, you made the comment that in some ways this is less restrictive. Is that talking about residential fencing projects, after-hours replacement, repair? If we're not going to do the holidays, do we need to look at this ordinance as to word my question correctly, what are the things that make this less restrictive?
Repairs would be allowed with the new language. If you look at the language that was excised across the first sentence, the erection, including excavating, demolition, alteration, or repair of any building other than between the hours of 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. weekdays is prohibited. That is something I've always just exercised some common sense with and ignored.
Okay. Well, great job, but let's get it codified. I think we're going to need to probably let you revise this instead of amending it tonight, but let's look, if he's doing this already, I agree we can not do the holiday part of it, but let's add this less restrictive to allow repair replacement and get it in writing instead of just his word.
Okay, good chat. Anybody else have any comments on this topic? Okay. I think we want to take no action on this. And Christian, I think you've received some feedback from us on kind of what we want to see going forward.
Yes, sir, I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 4, consider ordinance number 2019-21, amending section 14225B of the Code of Ordinances in the City of Jersey Village, adopting new flood insurance study of Harris County and incorporated areas and accompanying flood insurance rate maps. This has Austin Bleese's name on it.
Mayor and councilors, FEMA has updated the maps, the flood maps that govern our area. There are no changes to Jersey Village, but there are changes to other pieces of the map on our panel. So therefore, our panels are being updated. So FEMA is requiring us to utilize those new panels, which will have the effective date of November 15th, 2019. So we have to pass this ordinance in order to stay compliant with the NFIP.
Any discussion on the topic? One thing I just want to highlight is this is just an update to the FEMA maps. None of the, if you look at your firm map, if you go home and you look online, Jersey Village is actually split on the map. There's two maps that encompass most of Jersey Village, and so this is a change that occurred in one of those maps, but not within Jersey Village. So no homes have been impacted by that update. Correct.
Correct.
Okay. And this is a requirement to keep your flood insurance. So, is there anybody else who wants to discuss this topic? All right. Seeing none, I'm looking for a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 2019-21.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Item number 5, consider ordinance number 2019-22, amending the Jersey Village Code of Ordinances at Chapter 2, Article 4, Division 2, Section 2-142, to provide for revisions of the schedule of fees related to permits. Christian Summers, building official.
Bear with me, please. Computer went on the fritz.
Mayor, I can start if you'd like.
Or I've got different additional background information. House Bill 852 prohibited cities from calculating their residential building permit fees based on valuations for a proposed residential structure or improvement. The bill was signed by Governor Abbott on May 21st. Effective immediately, no grace period applied, so affected cities have had to change their fee structures as soon as possible. Specifically, the bill provided that in determining the amount of a building permit or inspection fee, which is required in connection with the construction or improvement of a residential dwelling, a city may not consider the value of the dwelling or the cost of constructing or improving the dwelling, and a city may not require the disclosure of information related to the value of or cost of constructing or improving a residential dwelling as a condition of obtaining a building permit, except as required by the Federal Emergency Management Agency for participation in the National Flood Insurance Program, the so-called 50% rule. We still need to know how much the work is. Most cities are calculating new fee schedules based on square footage. In my opinion, that's an option for new construction, both new, ground up, as well as additions, where you can readily determine what the square footage is, but not for remodels and renovations. Staff has determined that calculating fees based on the number of wall modifications is a cleaner approach. To get ahead of any potential legislative changes and to keep things simple, we've decided for commercial projects to modify fees similarly. Austin Blease, who has access to the background information, can give you a little more information.
All right. Does anybody have any discussion on this topic?
Yeah, I have a question. You know, we went from a per square foot basis to a value basis. When we did that, what was the per square foot basis before we went to the value?
For new commercial, new residential, ground up, and additions where square footage could be readily determined. And then valuations were for remodels, renovations.
I'm sorry, Christian, I missed that first part.
New commercial and new residential ground up and additions where square footage could be readily determined was assigned a permit value based on square footage, whereas everything else was based on valuation. So in February, we went to, was it February? Was it December? Or November? We went to valuations.
So where it could be determined, what was the square footage price?
It was 25 cents per square foot for residential and 30 cents per square foot for commercial.
One more time. Residential,
25 cents,
25 cents.
minimum $25.
And then commercial,
30 cents, minimum of $50. There were also plan check fees, one half of the permit fee, and then a zoning review fee, which was an additional fee on top of that. When we switched from that old method to valuation, we kind of put everything together into one.
Okay, so on the residential, we're going from 25 cents to 86 cents?
But we're also taking away the zoning review criteria and the plan check fees, if I'm not mistaken.
I think I'm more concerned about the total. You know, how we get there is how we get there. But if I came to Jersey Village 3 years ago and it cost me $2,500 in permitting, and now it's going to cost me $4,500 in permitting, I think it's something we need to look at. I'm really, again, I don't care how we get there, but where were we and where are we, relatively speaking? I don't think we...
In November, we talked about the true cost for staff, and we were trying to capture those costs. As building codes get more complicated and as direction and multiple pre-development meetings are required for people to get their plans approved.
And I would agree with that, but I'm still looking at the increase in cost. Are we doubling? Are we?
So we are actually staying about flat from where we are currently today on a valuation fee. So we're not increasing the rates any more than what we did back in November. We've just broken that down into a per square foot.
Have we done any kind of like a pro forma analysis to determine, okay, this particular permit would have cost this much under the old system, this particular permit would cost this much now?
That's exactly how I handled it, and to make sure, looked at multiple projects, also looked at other cities, what they're assessing. No, I didn't want to do $1.25 per square foot, as is the Memorial Villages, nor did I want to do Rosenberg's 39 cents per square foot.
But after all of that analysis and after looking at what the permit would cost under the structure as it currently exists today and what it would cost under this new proposed one, the dollar amount comes out to about a wash. It's about the same.
Correct.
So just to restate what you're saying, what we did in November, or what the council did in November, was raise the fees. But while they did that, they did it on a valuation basis. But now what these fees are reflective of what that valuation basis is, but doesn't put us in jeopardy of breaking state law.
Correct.
All right. Any other questions on this topic? All right. I'm looking for a motion.
I'll move we approve ordinance number 2019-22.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion on that topic? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Item number 6, consider resolution number 2019-35 concerning branding at golf course. Jason Alfaro, Director of Parks and Recreation.
Mayor and councilors, marketing plan for the Jersey Meadow Golf Course was identified in the city's 2016 comprehensive plan as a priority project. It was included in fiscal year 16-17 budget in amount of $15,000. Parks and Recreation Department submitted a request for proposal to several marketing firms. Brightbox was selected unanimously for their experience and service delivery methods. On June 19, 2017, the City Council approved staff to execute a contract with Brightbox to develop a marketing plan for the golf course. On February 19, 2018, during a regularly scheduled City Council meeting, the Council accepted the Jersey Meadow Clubhouse Assessment Report. After discussing the findings with the report, City Council unanimously decided to discuss options of designs for a new clubhouse facility. Since we are continuing to work towards a complete rebuild of the golf course facility, we feel that Brightbox marketing plan correlates well with the rebuild concept. The Golf Course Advisory Committee has reviewed the Brightbox marketing plan and have made recommendations to change the facility name that Brightbox had proposed. After meeting with the Golf Course Advisory Committee, the committee has additional names they would like the City Council to consider. Those names are Iron Oaks or Iron Oak, Village Golf, Village Oaks, and Jersey Ranch. Brightbox originally presented Village Links as the proposed name in their report. The original thought process was to rebrand at the same time we opened our new convention center and clubhouse. However, the exact timing of the rebranding is flexible, so an effective date of the rebranding can also be specified in this resolution. So staff recommends approval of resolution number 2019-35, rebranding the Jersey Meadow Golf Course. We just wanted to give you options to be able to have as much here to be able to choose from.
Thank you, Jason. I'll open discussion on this topic.
Yeah, I've discussed this naming with quite a few people. I play golf out there quite a bit, and people I play with, they've made comments to me. But first thing I want to say is that the worst name in this list is the one that Brightbox came up with. And I've gotten that from everybody. I found only one person that actually thought it was a decent name.
That was me, right?
The name that kept getting thrown out to me by people I played with was Jersey Oaks, because the oaks are a primary feature out there. Usually I play in them. But the thing about Councilman Warren came up with the name Iron Oaks while we were sitting in the discussion with the advisory committee, and it just, I don't know, it just has a unique ring to it, and I think marketing wise, the uniqueness of it has value, and that it would stick in people's head. But if we don't go with Iron Oaks, then I'm going with Jersey Oaks.
So just, can you anybody want to go into the history of where the Iron, you were in the meeting, so where did Iron Oaks come from?
It was a bit spontaneous. We were discussing trying to capture a bit of the history of the course, and at one point someone mentioned, it's the time that the course was the Cameron Iron Works employee course, and we had already been discussing oaks as a part of the name because of the prominent presence of oak trees throughout the course, and so I just put two and two together, and Iron Oaks or Iron Oak. I mean, I think whatever we decide, we can kind of, one or the other.
Another point, it's not that odd a name because there's other golf courses that have that name. And I mean, there's a golf course close to us named Black Horse. And, that seems like an odd name, but it sticks out and people remember it. There's a few other golf courses around us, and I don't really remember their names that well. No comments on my age, please.
Anybody else have a comment, Drew? Sorry.
My comment is that obviously I agree, and we've all discussed that rebranding when and if we address the new clubhouse. But I think we're a little premature right now. I think it's a little premature to make a decision. I'd like to get further along in the building process to know that we're making some headway. I think right now it's kind of up in the air. So I think this is probably step 3 or 4, and I think we're at step 1. So I'd like to postpone this until a later date when we have some more definitive information on the clubhouse itself.
I agree with Greg on the point of delaying this, and that would also give us more time for more citizen and more golfer input. Additional input never hurts.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think just having it come up tonight is going to trigger some other people to be thinking about it. Somebody may come up with something really good.
I liked Village Golf. Village Oaks works. But I have to agree with Greg. I'm not sure why we need to decide this now. I don't think this is where we're at right now.
Just my comments on it. I really do like Iron Oaks. I think that really captures the history of the course, what it was before the city acquired it. And it does, to Gary's point, it really does make it stand out. You're absolutely right about some of the courses around here. I can't remember a lot of them, and I'm 36, so. So I do like it. I do like it as part of a rebranding of the golf course. If we're going to do it, I say we go for it. So I think that's a good name for it. Now, to everybody's point that we should maybe table this for a later date, I'm going to need somebody to make a motion on that and maybe table it.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we table ordinance to resolution 201935.
I'll second that.
Okay, a motion and a second for tabling. Any more discussion on the topic? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Item number 7, consider resolution number 2019-36, receiving the golf course convention center and clubhouse project bids and providing a course of action for moving forward with the project. Jason Alfaro, Director of Parks and Recreation.
Okay. It's fairly lengthy, so bear with me. On March 8th, 2018, City Council held a workshop to discuss options for a new clubhouse facility, directing staff to prepare a request for proposal for the design of the new facility. The RFP was posted and emailed directly to 30 firms on March 14th, 2018. On April 16th, 2018, the City Council approved Resolution Number 2018-20, authorizing City Manager to negotiate an agreement with PGAL Incorporated for a design of a new golf course clubhouse. On May 14th, 2018, City Council approved Resolution 2018-30, authorizing the City Manager to execute an agreement with PGAL for the design. Since that time, staff has met multiple times with the architects, both on-site and informal meetings, and presented options to council in 2 separate workshops. First workshop with council, staff, and PGAL took place on September 17th, 2018. During this workshop, recommendations to the Clubhouse Convention Center facility were made from council. PGAL and staff reviewed and implemented those recommendations and continued to design the facility. On January 28, 2019, a second workshop was scheduled with staff, City Council, and PGAL to review the new changes and site plan. After the final workshop with City Council, PGAL and City staff started finalizing the design and moved in construction documents. On May 15, 2019, the first bid announcement was made public, with the second announcement being made on May 22nd. On May 23, 2019, City staff and PGAL held a pre-bid meeting, and at that time had roughly 7 interested parties. We issued 2 addendums to the bid documents and opened bids on June 6, 2019. The selection of a contractor for the Jersey Meadow Convention Center and Clubhouse is based on a competitively negotiated method of procurement. Guidance from the Texas Government Code 2269 defines this type of procurement as the most appropriate procurement method when price alone is not the determinant factor in selection. Further, the City of Jersey Village has employed the best value approach in this type of procurement. This process was defined in the bid documents and is included with the item in the meeting packet. We received 3 bids: Four Seasons Development Company for $5,171,000, Bay Commercial Construction for $5,400,006, and Stewart Builders Incorporated for $7 million flat. All these bids came in significantly higher than anticipated. City staff continued the process and scored the bids. Stewart Builders received the most points based upon the evaluation of the proposals. At this juncture, staff feels that there are 3 main options. And the 3 options are: A, allow the city manager to negotiate a contract with Stewart Builders and bring back an updated contract and price to council prior to awarding the bid. Staff feels there's too wide of a delta in the budget of the project and all the proposed prices for this method to be successful. B, revisit the plans with PGAL and city staff, value engineer some pieces of the project, and rebid the project with alternates. This could possibly include removing the parking lot from this part of the construction process. We could also work to bid this with a schedule of costs for each piece of the budget. And then C, review the plans with PGAL and reduce the amount of square footage and present our findings and updates to council. A resolution has been provided in order for City Council to make a selection for moving forward with this project. We also have Terrence and Paul here with PGAL for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Jason. I'll open up discussion.
Well, I have a question for PGAL. Is why? I don't understand the large discrepancy between what you came up with in price and what the bids have come in at.
That is a difficult one to explain on my end too. We have seen some other similar projects recently come in higher than expected with similar construction types. And I had a project bid that same week, Monday, that was a larger building, larger square footage of parking, concrete parking lot, that was similar in price to this project. So I feel like we may have hit the construction market at at a time when people are busy for wood frame construction.
Has labor changed?
Labor wouldn't have changed significantly, I wouldn't think. And we don't have a broken down version of each of these bids. We basically bid on a lump sum number, so we can't look at those individual line items to see where it might be higher than expected.
Well, I talked to a contractor friend of mine, and he was used to there being discrepancies between what the design firm and what the contractors come in with, but he said they were usually close. It's just doesn't seem possible that it's this far apart.
I was as surprised as everybody else.
So we're not going to get any insight here as to what the reason might be.
There were some changes in the scope. I think from the numbers that I presented you back in January, the amount of paving did change. We ended up doing more concrete paving and as well as more asphalt paving out in the parking lot. That's the largest scope change. The square footage of the building stayed essentially the same as what we showed you back in January.
Okay. My opinion here is option A isn't an option for the reasons stated. I'm not ready to cut down on square footage yet. To me, option B is the only way to go.
Well, I think obviously something went wrong. I mean, we're at 11,600 square feet.
Yes.
3.6 million, I think, was the last, your projection.
Overall, that was overall project cost as well. So that included, furniture and, this bid.
Right. So the proposals we got included construction, but not interior furnishings.
Correct.
Okay, so we're at the lowest at 5.2. We missed that by $2 million probably, roughly, if you take out the furniture and fixtures. I suppose that you use some kind of estimating software or to come up with that 3.6. How'd you come up with 3.6?
Well, we used similar projects that we've done. We've done other clubhouse projects around the city. There's another similar project that we are bidding right now. We're actually using a construction manager at risk delivery method up north of town, but we're seeing similar cost escalation on that project as well.
I think on a per square foot basis, it's, I think we were talking 280 at one time, and I think we're 480 now or something close to that. I hate to put you on the spot, but I kind of look to you guys and say, man, you guys missed it. I look back at some notes, the meeting notes, the bid meeting, clarification, the construction budget for building, site work, canopy, and demolition is 2.7 million, not 3 million as mentioned in the meeting. So the contractors knew at the bid meeting that it was 3 million. I go back into some minutes of the meeting at the golf course, and we were at 1.2, and there were some other comments.
While he's looking that up, both of us are tall. There's some people in the back that are having a hard time hearing you. If you can lean down to the mic a little bit.
Okay. I apologize.
There was Austin, you had sent out some information, and it was from April 20th of 18. Had Jason and I met with Paul Bonnet from PJL. He did say that 150 a square foot is low price, and most construction projects he has seen recently are closer to $200 per square foot. That was April of 18. We're April, 1 year. I don't think we have an inflation factor of 100% plus, from 200 to 480. So I think we're missing something. Yeah, and I think we as a council are looking to you to say, what did we miss? Because we're not experts, you guys are. You have to give us some insight. Go back to the contractors and ask if the time frame's too short. Did they not have enough time to bid it correctly, and they just threw placeholders in there? I talked to my estimators that do projects for me on machinery, and I said, tell me about the process. And they said, look, if the package is thick and onerous, we'll put placeholders in there, and we're going to make money on it. So it may not be exact, but they're gonna double it or triple it to make sure that they cover their rear end. So I think we need to kind of find out what went wrong in this process and how we correct the process before we start scaling back and changing design. Before we start the other part, let's find out how we got here.
Well, I think part of the bid process causes some issues in going back to some of these contractors unless we choose not to go with any of their bids. We have to close this bid before we move forward. The second option would allow you to break it down where you could get more information, correct?
Yes, I believe so. So I believe the second option, correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, but would be to select a contractor, work with that contractor to reduce the cost and come back with a...
The first option is to select, and we don't want to select any of these options. The second was to revisit plans, value engineer some pieces, and have alternates within the bid.
I think the other thing is if 13 people showed up for the pre-bid meeting and only 3 bid, something kept those other 10 from bidding. Was it the size of the package? Was it is that a standard detail package as far as your requirements?
We did issue 2 addenda, as was mentioned. The addenda had some pretty significant pieces of the puzzle that were issued there. Audiovisual package, signage package were issued as addenda. So that could have been one reason that might have scared people away. That those weren't included in the initial package.
Yeah, I saw in some of the, I looked at the information briefly, but I did see in some of the information where contractors had come back for questions and needed more time because they weren't being, their subs were not being responsive. So they asked for more time, and the reply was no, the deadline is the deadline, you must submit by this date. So what it tells me is that, again, they're using placeholders instead of real quotes and real bids. So I'm kind of looking at the bid process. I'm looking at what's contained in that bid package. I'm looking at the timelines. I'm looking at whether or not that bid package is too onerous, I was looking at something, construction waste management disposal. There were plans for submittal. I don't know if that's normal. And I'd have to pull out some detail and let you know, but there were things in there that, from a layperson, seems pretty taxing
in
on a
terms
country.
of the requirements of the specifications. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Some of the specifications.
And we could definitely go back and review some of those things and talk to the contractors to see if there was anything in there that caused them not to bid the project. And,
What about?
And I do have, there are definitely things that we can look at to cut back on the costs, whether it's materials or light fixtures. We can definitely go back and take another pass at that to, make sure that it'll come in less this next time.
It may be tough to find $2 million.
I'm not promising that. Yes.
My concern is, I have to echo what Greg said, is oftentimes, in my experience, sometimes the process, particularly when you're talking about what starts off looking like a fairly competitive process and ends up not being one, and I don't know to what degree, I know in our business sometimes you'll have people who are submitting bids, they'll go drop it off in person and they'll go hang out in our lobby of our office just to see who else comes in and drops them off. Obviously, when you've got a bid meeting, you kind of can see who's there, and they all talk amongst one another. And so I always get concerned about the fact that, if you know who the bidders are, you can usually tweak your bid a little bit to give yourself the greatest chance at the greatest margin. I would encourage us to go back when, if we decide to rebid this, to look at some of those things and see if we can find ways to sort of increase the competitiveness. How much time did we give? I know there were addendums, but I mean, kind of, if you can give us a sense of the timeline here from when the RFP first was published, when there was a meeting, when the addenda went out, and what the deadline was, it'd be good to know, because that seems like it would have a significant bearing on this.
It looks like the first bid announcement was made on May 15th, second one on May 22nd, and the pre-bid meeting was held the next day on May 23rd. And then open bids on June 6th, so.
Yeah.
The
last addendum was issued a week before the bid opening date. Yes,
is it just me, or is that a fairly tight turnaround time for something like this? I mean, in oil and gas, we usually are giving weeks, if not a month and a half, even on small things. So this seems like a fairly complex, especially when you're talking lump sum. It seems like it'd be very difficult to be competitive unless you were going to pad everything pretty well.
It's pretty typical to give them 3 to 4 weeks for a bid of this type of project, or even much larger projects.
All right. So we're looking for some direction to give. There were 3 options. Of course, we can modify those options as we deem fit. I think I kind of noticed everyone was leaning towards option B, which is to revisit the plans with PGAL and city staff, value engineer some pieces of the project, and rebid the project with alternatives. Some other feedback that I heard was looking at the actual bid process. Look at maybe what in that process, going back to talk to some of those contractors to see maybe why some that were at the pre-bid meeting chose not to bid. That maybe I kind of put that on PGAL personally, just to kind of go back and revisit that, be the point of contact there. So that's kind of what I heard from council, was to look at the process, basically do option B, but also look at the process for how this was bid and how we can go back and be more competitive next time around.
Yes, and so he's mentioned when I talked to Austin about this, they've had other projects that have had the same failure. So by not selecting someone and moving forward with 2, it provides them the opportunity to go talk to some of those contractors and find out. Right now, they can't talk to them. The bid's still open. But by closing this, value engineering some of the pieces, and looking at a second bid, they can do a little bit more research and maybe be able to explain what happened. So I would suggest that we go with option 2.
All right. I'm looking for a motion on the resolution.
I move to approve resolution number 2019-36, selecting amongst the options in section 2, the second option. And rejecting all bids.
Second.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Item 8, consider resolution number 2019-37, approving a memorandum of understanding between the City of Jersey Village and the Texas Department of Transportation for the construction of a sound wall. Austin Blease, City Manager.
Mayor and councilors, we've discussed this a little bit earlier. The original study was done back in May of 2014 for the ambient noise levels throughout Jersey Village. TxDOT was supposed to do this project as part of the 290 project. That didn't happen. So tonight we have in front of you an MOU to enter into between the city and TxDOT to get this project going for a sound wall. As part of the MOU, the city has provided the necessary easements and construction of the sound wall. The city is responsible for all costs associated with the right-of-ways, which we've already paid. The city provided TxDOT adequate access to the project site. They're going to design the 16-foot sound wall from Lakeview Drive to Senate Avenue in accordance with their applicable laws and procedures. TxDOT will pay 100% of the design and construction costs, and upon the completion of this project, the city will assume ownership, jurisdiction, and maintenance of the sound wall without charge to TxDOT. We asked them if they would construct it and own it, so we didn't have to. they declined to do that. So we'd have to own it. So if we want this sound wall project to continue moving forward, we need the council to approve Resolution 2019-37, approving the memorandum of understanding between the city and TxDOT for the construction of the sound wall.
Thank you, Austin. Open discussion on this topic.
Austin, do we have a rough estimate as to what the maintenance cost would be on this project once they were done?
No.
I mean, I would imagine it doesn't require a whole lot of maintenance. I don't see guys out maintaining the existing sound walls very often.
No, it shouldn't be too much. I mean, the biggest thing would be if there's an accident, a car runs into it or that type of thing, you're going to have issues there. If we need to go paint things to remove graffiti, that type of thing. I wouldn't anticipate a whole lot of annual ongoing maintenance, but there's going to be some.
Austin, I don't know, I'm not, maybe I'm not understanding it, but the memorandum of understanding describes the sound wall as going from Senate to south of Lakeview Drive. I don't understand what south of Lakeview Drive means, because that tells me the other side of Lakeview. I mean, no, I'm sorry, it's south of Lakeview, but
it's the point at the parking lot right out here, kind of where the old paint box or the old box for oil.
So basically where the residents, the homes end,
Right.
and the parking lot for this building starts.
Correct.
I just don't know if that's spelled out like it needs to be, but if it works for TxDOT, I guess it's okay.
I think everybody that's drafted this and who's looking at it has been involved with all the meetings to see the preliminary drawings. Like I said, we're still trying to see if we can't get it extended, but it was clear to me and TxDOT what that point was.
Okay, just me then.
So there are continued discussions. That's why we did the hearing earlier, is that right now it ends the corner, but we're hoping to extend it. And that was the reason we did earlier's action.
We're definitely trying to get that continued. They've come back and said not quite, but we're still trying to push them on that. I can't make any guarantees. I don't know for sure that it's gonna happen, but we're still trying.
Sounds like we're doing everything we can.
Absolutely.
Austin, what's the timeline for a replacement on the sound wall? Do you know? Just from some perspective, there was a sound wall behind my family's house on the Southwest Freeway between the Loop and Chimney Rock, and that, I think, was just repaired after about 35 years. Does that sound about right to you?
TxDOT said it's usually 25 to 30, something in there. It could be a little bit longer, it could be a little bit shorter, just, environmental concerns and things like that.
So would we be responsible for building that, or would they pick that up again? Or do we know?
We could certainly have the conversation with them at that point in time. It's kind of tough to say at this point. What would happen 25 years from now?
Yeah, I suspect in the grand tradition of government, they would kick the can down the road.
Okay. Is there anybody have any more comments on this topic? Seeing none, looking for a motion.
Move to approve Resolution 2019-37.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. So item number 9, we need to change to consider a resolution instead of an ordinance. Scott, is there any feedback on that? Just
in looking at the Texas Transportation Code, it said that it was an action by resolution. So it's just to be consistent with the state enabling statute. Don't think that's a real problem, but we're going to follow what the statute said.
okay, so I'm going to call this as consider resolution number 2019-23.
I think it's going to be resolution 2019-39.
So we're going to consider resolution number 2019-39, establishing Village Center Local Government Corporation and adopting the Articles of Incorporation and the bylaws of the Village Center Local Government Corporation. Austin Blees, City Manager.
Mayor and councilors, this is another step forward in the creation of Village Center. Before you tonight, you have the resolution to create the local government corporation. The corporation bylaws and the resolution creating the corporation were emailed out earlier today after we received them from our attorneys, and we're happy to answer any questions the council might have.
Any questions from council?
Scott, I saw in the bylaws where the LGC would last in perpetuity, but we would have the option of ending it at any time?
That is correct. City Council will be able to dissolve the LGC at any time.
Any more comments?
One procedural change, the addresses that are shown, they will be changed to be your business address at City Hall.
Okay. You need something, Lori?
So we're going to redo the, with that change? Okay.
Okay. Any more discussion on the topic? Seeing none, I'm looking for a motion on the resolution 2019-39.
I move we approve resolution number 2019-39.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Item number 10, discuss and take appropriate action concerning the progress report from the owners of the property located at 16844 Northwest Freeway, Jerseyville, Texas, concerning the progress on the performance of the permitted work under ordinance number 2019-11. Christian Summers, building official.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council. Unless you have any questions of staff, Mr. Lance H. Luke Bashara, partner with Patel Gaines, attorneys at law representing Jersey Village Lodging LLC, is here to give you a progress report.
Go ahead.
Council, thank you for having me back. I'm here to give you an update from the last time that we visited, which was about last month. If things keep going as they are, I suspect this will probably be the last time that you'll see me in person handling it. My associate in the back, Kathleen Jones, she offices in our Houston office. She'll likely be here if we're just reporting good news. I think Mr. Summers will agree based upon my conversation with him, both today and over the course of last month. Progress has been occurring in lockstep with the schedule that the council prescribed by virtue of the ordinance that was passed. At this point, we have provided asbestos surveys, mold surveys, and roofing reports to the city. Mr. Summers has confirmed that the city has accepted those. That's not to say there's not issues related or identified in each of those reports. However, they do contain the content and substance that Mr. Summers was looking for. My client has engaged a couple of design professionals, architect, engineer, working on completing plans that incorporate and address issues identified in these three reports. The next milestone we have, I believe, is July 15th, at which time my client is required to submit construction plans to Mr. Summers along with an application for building permit to the city. We seem to be on track with that. I did want to raise one issue with council so as not to surprise you. I had mentioned at the prior hearing that we had objected on the basis that the decision the council was making was one required to be made in court, and we have taken an appeal of the decision. But that doesn't mean that we don't intend to work with the city along the schedule the city has identified. It is a prophylactic step that unfortunately we have to take due to very short timelines for jurisdictional issues with the courts in reviewing these processes. Under Chapter 214 of the Local Government Code, the city attorney can speak to that for the council as well. I look forward to working with the city on that. We don't plan on pressing this hard. In fact, we look forward to reaching an agreement with the city to push out any response deadlines the city may have. Because of that, I wanted to appear in front of you in person to update you on that, so you wouldn't be surprised if you found out, hey, why is this appeal happening, and Jersey Village Lodging didn't tell us about it. But we are committed, as we were before, to completing this project in accordance with the schedule outlined in the ordinance. And I think up to this point in time, Mr. Summers will confirm that that is in fact happening. In fact, I think Mr. Summers' introduction of me probably lets you guys know that we're getting along just fine and everything's working just as the council, I hope, had envisioned it, as Mr. Summers had hoped. If you have any questions for me, I'm open for answering them.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, to be clear for the folks listening back there, I think what you mean is that earlier this week your client filed a lawsuit in the Harris County District Clerk's office against the City of Jersey Village regarding this matter. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's an appeal of the decision pursuant to Chapter 214. It is in the form of a lawsuit, however. The procedure is specified as a writ of certiorari, and it's a very technical type thing, but ultimately it's just an appeal of that decision which is required to be made. If things go like we hope, and they seem to be going, it'll probably just be dismissed at the end. But we had to do it to preserve the ability to have that review because it's a 30-day window for us. We had no choice.
Any other questions?
The rules that we set down, there was a 10-day period in which the property was supposed to be secured and completely vacated. I believe we got a report from Christian that that didn't happen as far as the pool was concerned.
I don't know that it was related to the pool. I will say this, following the council meeting, I stayed the night in town. I went over to the property myself, inspected it. Mr. Summers did identify an issue related to lashing on a temporary construction type fence, a chain link fence, that I believe the city in fact corrected, and there was an open vending room door. I did not notice the vending room door at that time, and we did go around the property. As far as the lashing on the fence, there's a lot of temporary chain link fencing there. It's possible I could have overlooked it. I'm not exactly sure exactly where it was, but there was an issue with that was brought to our attention. Dispatched a client representative down there the very same day to go address that. And since you brought it up, there was also an issue not related to the ordinance, but we received notice that there was some landscaping that needed to be tended to, and we handled that as well. Mr. Summers can probably speak to the issue a little more directly, though.
What I want to do is direct any questions to council, and then we'll have Christian come up and give his report. Do you have anything?
No, my questions were to Christian relative to the statements.
All right, anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Christian?
Thank you. Speaking to not securing the property, the areas in question were indeed an open vending machine area right by the offices near the Porta Cochere, attached to Building 1, the primary building behind Taqueria Serandas, and temporary construction fencing adjacent to the pool for what's referred to as Building 2. It backs up to the parking lot for the church. That had not been lashed. Somebody could get in there. And the vending room was open. Anybody could have gone in.
Was it taken care of?
I believe they had a date of the 23rd of May. I was in Surfside fishing, but we got it taken care of. City staff got it taken care of the following week.
Christian, relative to the other milestones that we had talked about, have the property owners been complying with all those requirements?
Yes, I think the last reports I received, I got an original exterior asbestos survey with the original construction document submittal, and then sometime in late May, mid to late May, received asbestos surveys for the interior. On the 12th, due on June 13th, I believe I received, just last week, received the mold report, which came back positive. and included a protocol for remediation. I'm still kicking myself for not wearing my respirator. And an analysis of the roof, which is relatively structurally sound. It just requires some repairs.
Would you characterize it, they've substantially complied with our requests?
For the timeline, for those matters that were due on the 13th, yes. I don't think they displayed the earnestness or the seriousness for securing the property and actually investing in a subcontractor or somebody competent to, not to say Mr. Bashar is not competent, but somebody who knows construction and can check the site and make sure it's secure.
Any other questions for Christian?
So, yeah, what is the action? Is there an action item here? I'm based on what I've heard this evening, they're moving in the direction that we've asked them to move in. Whether they're at 100%, it doesn't sound like it, but I don't think you're going to get the 100% compliance, to be honest with you. I think Christian's pretty diligent. He could probably find something wrong with just about anything if he looked hard enough. So I think they've substantially complied with our wishes, and I think we continue down the timeline that we set.
And I believe, did we commit to monthly updates for this? Okay. So we'll be back here next month with more timelines. I see there's more timelines coming up. So,
And Mayor, that'll be July 15.
On July 15th is the deadline for construction documents.
And that'll also be the next update.
And good timing. Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
All right, for item number 12, I'm going to recuse myself. Bobby, you're going to take over?
Okay, we're going to call the next item on the agenda. Agenda item H12. Consider ordinance number 2019-24, amending the Code of Ordinances, City of Jersey Village, Texas, Chapter 6, Alcoholic Beverages, Article 1, Section 6.1, Definitions, at retail establishments selling or offering for sale any alcoholic beverage, for the purpose of the efficient application of local requirements allowed under the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Code, providing for a penalty, providing for severability, providing for publication, and providing an effective date. I guess we're going to go to, it's for Christian. Christian, take it away.
Thank you, Councilman. This item is on your agenda to modify the definition for alcoholic sales, retail sales of alcoholic beverages, to include microbreweries, distilleries, wineries, etc.
So Christian, this is relative to specifically the Dillard property off of Senate Avenue, is that correct?
Actually, all zoning districts that we're proposing to add text changes to allow for retail sales of alcoholic beverages with an SUP. That would be for zoning district F, G, H, J1, and J. Specific use permit.
So the selling of alcoholic beverages is now permitted. You can buy mixed drinks, beer, wine, etc. in these zoning areas. Is that correct?
Only when your sales of food, etc., exceed the amount of sales in alcohol. So it's why Coach's serves food. It's why Jersey Pub serves food and also has a cigar license. So only right now in zoning district D, south of 290, do we have ordinances in place that allow for alcohol sales?
Council Holden, if I might answer your question, perhaps. This ordinance here, item number 12, really only changes the definition of retail establishment selling or offerings for sale any alcoholic beverage. This ordinance here has nothing to do with any zoning issues or anything like that. This just changes our definition for the alcohol beverages.
So it adds something. It already allows beer, wine, liquor.
Right. This brings this or this code up to date with current trends in that business, if you will, whereas the old definition was from many decades ago that just really needs to be updated to comply more closely with the current laws and how things happen.
It picks up additional classifications that the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission has created over time.
I guess where I'm going in a roundabout way is it doesn't allow liquor sales in an area that doesn't already allow liquor sales. It just changes the definition.
That's correct.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, this is about clarity.
Correct.
And coming in line with what the state law is already in their definitions. Question for the city secretary, just to make sure the air is clear on all this. One of the reasons the mayor stepped down is Lori, he's filed the correct paperwork. He is well above board on all the conflict of interest on this, correct?
He has filed a conflict of interest statement concerning this item, and I believe another item that's coming up on the agenda.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion at this time.
Move that we approve ordinance 2019-24.
I'll second.
We have a second. I just want to make sure, provide some clarity here. Due to the somewhat unusual nature of the Mayor Pro Tem presiding over this, I just wanted to make sure that folks are aware before we vote. Section 2.05 of our city charter does provide the Mayor Pro Tem with the ability to vote even when they are presiding over meetings in lieu of the mayor. And so if you question why I'm voting as well, that's why. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All those against? Any abstentions? The resolution passes. I'm sorry, the ordinance passes. Lori, did you say there's another item on the agenda that from which Mayor Mitchum has recused himself?
Yes, I think it might be the next one. So it's item 13.
We'll call the next item on the agenda H13. Consider ordinance number 2019-25, receiving the Planning and Zoning Commission's preliminary report and calling a joint public hearing of the City Council and the Planning and Zoning Commission concerning the proposal to amend Chapter 14, Article 4, zoning districts of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Jersey Village, Texas, by including and allowing retail establishments selling or offering for sale any alcoholic beverage through specific use permit in zoning districts F, 1st Business District, G, 2nd Business District, H, Industrial District, J, 3rd Business District, J1, 4th Business District, and K, 5th Business District. Rick Faircloth, Chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thank you, Council. P&Z had met on this item tonight, and we had a unanimous decision except for one member voted against the item. I'm sorry. We met tonight, and everybody on the commission had voted for the item to go forward with the public hearing, except we had one commission member that voted against that.
Okay, thank you, Rick. Any discussion from council?
Mr. Faircloth, did that person have a reason?
I think the reason is that we've had some other specific use permits that have been issued in the past, and back then the commission had voted 100% to not go forward with a particular issue, whatever that happens to be. And they just felt that no matter how this person would have voted, that the council's going to make their own decision anyway. And it was just a personal preference. It didn't give no background for that.
Okay, thanks.
Any other discussion at this time? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I move we approve ordinance number 2019-25.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Those against? Any abstentions? Oh, I'm sorry. Lori, register that as a yay vote for me. Sorry, I got a little too much into the roll. And with that, the ordinance passes. We will now return to our normally scheduled presiding officer.
Thank you, Bobby. All right, going to move along to item number H14, consider resolution number 2019-38, receiving the Planning and Zoning Commission's final reports concerning the proposals to rezoning of the City Hall area and the Police Department and Fire Department area. Rick Faircloth.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, Council. After the public hearing was completed, we took the information that the public had presented forward, and we convened into our room over here and had some pretty lengthy discussion and agreed that this was the best way forward to do this rezoning of this property as we go forward with some of the future plans that we might do. But based on the rezoning, it was unanimous 100% to go forward with that action.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion amongst council? Okay, seeing none, I entertain a motion.
I'll move we approve resolution number 2019-38.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion on the topic? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Item number 15, consider ordinance number 2019-26, amending Chapter 14, Building and Development, Article 4, Austin Blease, City Manager.
Mayor and councilors, this item here is before you. We had the public hearing earlier. This one would amend the zoning districts, providing for police, explicitly providing for police and fire stations to be in residential zones. Currently, it says municipal buildings. We just want to clarify that includes police and fire stations. So changing it to read municipal government buildings, police stations and fire stations, and public libraries, which has been there for a while.
All right, any discussion amongst council on this topic?
Austin, just had a thought. Across the freeway, the way that's currently zoned, we do not have a specific call out for police and fire buildings, correct?
I'd have to review that again, but I don't believe we do.
I think it says government buildings.
Right.
Okay.
Any more discussion? All right, seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I'll move we approve ordinance number 2019-26.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Item number 16, consider ordinance number 2019-27, authorizing revisions to the official zoning map as set out in section 14-82. So the property is located at 16401 Lakeview Drive and 16327 Lakeview Drive and 16501 Lakeview Drive shall be changed from zoning district G to zoning district A. Austin Blease.
Mayor and councilors, this would change this property here, the police station and the fire station, to residential zone.
Any discussion amongst council? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move we approve ordinance number 2019-27.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Item number 17, consider ordinance number 2019-28, amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Jersey Village by amending Chapter 14, Building and Development, Article 4. Austin Blease.
Mayor and councilors, this ordinance would allow for split space CMU to be used on veneer when a home is elevated. With the home elevations projects, we are trying to get these veneer screenings done for with grant funds. And so that's why we're trying to do this right now.
Any discussion amongst council? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we we approve ordinance number 209-28.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion on the topic? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Item number 18, consider ordinance number 2019-29, amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Jersey Village by amending Chapter 14, Building and Development, Article 4. Austin Blease, City Manager.
Mayor and councilors, this ordinance would require redevelopment against residential zoning districts to provide buffering or sound walls or masonry walls of at least 6 feet in height, and mainly for the sound wall issues that we discussed earlier.
Any discussion amongst council?
How does this change from our previous ordinance?
So currently, we only require it if the non-residential development abuts to a residential lot. This would allow it to abut up against a residential zoning district, where this parcel of land would not be considered a residential lot, but we are now in a residential zoning district. That's where the distinction comes in from.
Is this directed towards the sound wall specifically?
Correct.
This is supposed, it reads that it doubles the buffer space. What's the size of the buffer space then?
This does not change the buffer space.
Thought I read something about it doubling.
Screening walls are located in a section of 1488 at the end of 1488 that reads buffer yard standards. It's where you'll find an 8-foot masonry wall requirement between residential lots and commercial development. We're changing this, of course, to read, and it actually should read, for screening of residential zoning districts from commercial development.
Reading where masonry wall of at least 6 feet in height exists in the residential lots abutting a non-residential development, the non-residential developer shall provide a buffer yard 1 1/2 times the width required elsewhere in this code, with 2 times the landscaping requirements in lieu of a second masonry wall.
And we would not want a second masonry wall because we'd have issues with somebody maintaining between the 2 walls. Quite often that happens with a picket fence put up against another picket fence.
That just applies when you have a second wall.
Right.
So if the residential district already has a wall, say Enclave, Lakes on Eldridge, or Lakes of Jersey Village, there wouldn't be a second wall created because of this ordinance?
No. This ordinance is just changing for this, for the requirement for residential zoning districts to be screened from commercial development. It could be done with enhanced buffer yards. It could be done with a second masonry wall. It could be done with 1 masonry wall. Right now, it just reads from residential lots.
Right, and in your packet, it really just shows line out lots put in zoning districts twice. That's really the change.
Would this have any impact on Village Center?
No, because that is all a part of the form-based codes in
Correct.
District D. So these standards are not applicable in Village Center.
Okay, so the form-based codes for Village Center is for the 43 acres or the entire TIF or TERS over there?
Well, it's designed to be for the entire TERS, but because we only have the limited amount in our current city limits, that's the only area that applies to currently. So if and when future annexation were to happen, that's the zoning that would come in under.
I'm sorry, would you repeat that?
If and when future annexation happens, that the zoning over there would be District D.
District D, not applicable to this code.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'm entertaining a motion.
I move we approve ordinance number 2019-29.
Second.
All right. If I have a motion and a second, any more discussion on the topic? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. It takes us into mayor and council comments. I'm going to start with Gary Wilbenhorst.
For the sake of brevity, I'm going to decline.
One of the comments earlier was about charging nonprofit groups. I had a lot of thought on that prior to this meeting, but the problem becomes is that I have groups that I am partial to. You have groups that you're partial to, and sometimes we don't agree. And so charging individuals like the swim team is just to make sure that it's fair for all groups. The city's able to recoup the cost of their resources without favoring any particular group. So I understand where that comes from and concern, but I got to use the golf course for the first time on Saturday, and it's been 10 years since I've been out there. It looks fabulous. Really like all the improvements that have been done, and come out for the July 4th parade.
Speaking of said group of the JV Stars, I want to congratulate them. They won all 5 dual meets they had this year, and they won the divisionals this past Saturday, so which is where I was. So undefeated. So congrats to the swimmers and all those involved with that. And on Sunday was Father's Day, so happy Father's Day to all the fathers that are amongst up here and also in the city.
I'd like to make a comment about social media. I'm often disheartened that people use social media as a conduit for acquiring information regarding the city. If citizens have a question regarding issues, policies, things on the agenda, the best place to acquire information is from the council people who you've elected or from the city staff who you've hired. Too often, I find it very entertaining. Too often I see comments on social media relating to my understanding. I could be wrong, but I don't know, but I think when any comments prefaced by that, you disregard it. I would say probably 85% of what I read on social media relative to the city is inaccurate or incorrect. And it's a little disheartening because to respond in writing takes a lot of time. If you pick up a phone and call one of us, call the city staff, you'll get all the information you need plus some. So my comment really is to use social media for what it's intended, but don't use it as a conduit for information. It's not accurate.
I'll just say congrats, JV Stars.
Yeah, congrats, JV Stars. I echo what Greg said. It is disheartening. It takes a lot of time to correct misinformation, and when it spreads as quickly as it does this day and age, it's really takes a lot of our time. We're just volunteers. We all live in the same city that you live in. We want the best for this city, and we give up a lot of our time. This is just one meeting of the month. A lot of us participate in multiple meetings every single month, and it's people really work very hard to make these things work. So if you have any questions or need some clarification, please don't hesitate to contact us or contact city staff. Thank you all in the audience for hanging out with us this entire time. This has been a long meeting, so thank you very much for your participation and for your comments. And with that, I'll go ahead and close the meeting. Meeting adjourned.